What's going on? 6 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Big show today. Titans President of Football Operations Chad Brinker will join the show in studio at 7:20 ahead of Mike Borgonzi's introductory press conference at 11. Head coach search update as Aaron Glenn has landed back in Detroit via Woody Johnson's plane. No deal as of now, but the sources reporting on this of Jordan Schultz are saying a substantial offer was made that the Jets' job would be his if he wants it. Glenn is currently constructing his potential staff, which would ideally include Lions quarterback coach Mark Brunell, and if he does not get the OC job in Detroit, which would be a big play for the OC, at OC for Glenn. And a big bounce-back win for the Vols last night as they take down Mississippi State 68-56. Chaz Lanier, 23 points. Felix Okapara finishing with 12 rebounds and 1 point shy of a double-double. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Wednesday morning starts right now on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. A very big show here for the next 4 hours on RKW. 615-737-1045 is our number, and today we hear the new plan. Straight from the man who has been put in charge by Amy Adams-Strunk and the Tennessee Titans. Chad Brinker not only speaks to the media this morning at 10 o'clock, he joins us in studio at 7:20 this morning, but that is only the beginning. Rhett Bryan at 8 o'clock. Philip Forsberg, Nashville Predators forward at 9:05. Your thoughts throughout the morning on the 104.5 The Zone TV and the F&M Bank chat, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. It is Wednesday, January the 22nd. Good morning. How are we doing?
We're doing good. Ready for a new day in terms of Titans leadership. Excited to get Chad Brinker in here and kind of pick his brain a little bit in terms of what he's looking for with this new front office. And like you said, the media is going to get an opportunity to meet Mike Borgonzi later this afternoon, which will be interesting to see where he takes it and his point of view and why he took this job when there has been in the past some questions about the alignment. So I'm excited. A day of business, we should say.
No doubt. Absolutely. Same here, man. A little bit of afternoon surprise yesterday with the getting of Chad Brinker. So excited to have him come into the studio, in person, on camera, in front of microphones. So should be a good conversation. Very much looking forward to it, man. A guy like him, in his position, for sure, speaking before he actually goes into the media, get intimate.
Yeah, and that won't be on camera, and there will be no audio available from the side scrum with the media at 11.
No doubt about it. So, be really cool right there. So, get first stab at it. I am anxiously looking forward to it since it got presented to us yesterday. So,
yeah.
Let the good times roll on a hump day.
Well, we're thankful to be the ones to get the first conversation on camera and audio with Chad Brinker. And, of course, like you said, since that won't happen on video or live streamed at 10 o'clock, that's all right. Just join us here in a little over an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. In studio, right? It's a little bit better that way. So, looking forward to it. We got to make sure, I don't know if it's going to be me, Kayla, Will, or Bert, but whenever they do arrive, we got to make sure somebody's at the front door considering how frigid it is outside.
Oh, I know. No waiting today.
You're almost disrespectful if you let somebody sit outside more than 3 seconds. So, By the way, take care of your animals outside, too. I know a lot of people have outside dogs and
How
stuff.
about the snow in Destin and New Orleans?
Beach
and
snow.
all these like very southern places that have never had snow pictures.
VFL.
Charleston, Wilmington, North
Charleston got
Carolina.
it, too.
Dude, all kind of beach communities are getting their first snow in a decade.
I heard like areas around Baton Rouge got like 7 inches of snow.
So for a lot of SEC fan bases, when they say a snowball's chance in hell, well, there is a snowball in hell. Baton Rouge. For a lot of SEC fan bases this morning. I tend to like Baton Rouge, but, if you're an Alabama fan, maybe you're thinking, wow, hell really did freeze over.
Yeah.
I saw a guy with a freezing cold take yesterday. It was like, you're not an SEC school if you got snow inside of your stadium. If he was at LSU. Guy actually quote tweeted himself and said, well, I guess hell is frozen over then.
It has. Yeah.
Kind of wild how that all unfolded,
I was
man.
getting pictures literally since maybe 11 a.m. from my in-laws of like Opelika being covered in snow, which is right by Auburn, by the way, and Mobile area, which is the beach. So it was wild to see that. Like, they don't get that kind of stuff.
All I know is I'm done with these single-digit temperatures. This is not fun anymore. I am so tired of walking out of my door and just getting uppercutted by the temperature. I can't do it anymore. I'm not even usually somebody who has to start their car or warm their car up before they get in it. The last 2 weeks, went out there. Just go look at Instagram on your phone in the bathroom while you're waiting on your car to warm up. Because I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to let y'all know I'm going to retire if it is single digits next week.
Uppercutted like the Notre Dame mascot. Just taking one of the chin.
100%.
Taking one of the chin. You know that you also are in an uncomfortable situation when you pronounce it temperature. Like, and again, that's how I pronounce it. But Southern people, the temperature's too low. Mm-hmm. It's our colloquialism down here.
No doubt. It was fun. I've enjoyed it. I think I'm good for one more week. I will say that.
No, absolutely.
I'm good,
You're good
for one more.
single digits?
Yeah. Not take
You
me
built
up.
for hibernation, man.
Dang.
I'm skinny mini over here.
mean,
What am I
exactly.
supposed to
For
do?
this. Don't ask for this evil put on us.
We're not even outside that much anyway these days. So look, I'm good for one more. Look, I gave my truck 2 starts this morning as far as the
You ain't even
temperature.
got to go outside to start your car. I don't want to hear
Exactly.
it.
Do it straight from the phone.
I don't want to hear it.
Do it straight
Did
from
you
the
have
phone.
to like pump its chest? Like, come on.
No,
Come
absolutely
on, baby.
not. I
Let's
opened up
go.
my
Would you pump a car's chest? I'd love to see that image. Where exactly
Come
is
on.
a car's
2
chest,
starts.
Caleb? No, let's hear more about this.
Pop the hood.
Right in front, baby.
Have sparks. What? No, I open up my phone, I push a button on the app, and voila. I actually have had issues with that before in Pittsburgh. It gets so cold for so long, though. Like, we have to plug in diesels, and I was new to the diesel world, and that truck sounded like it was clanking before it cranked up, because diesel needs a heater to actually get it warmed up, because it's a low-burning fuel.
I just feel
A
like
lot of
this
work.
temperature can make you look a lot more feminine than you would like to look. Yesterday,
you mean?
Yesterday, I was getting out of my car to go to the gym. The parking lot was packed, so I had to park at the back of the parking lot. It was so briskly. What's a good word for that? Nipply. It was cold
Nippy.
as hell.
Nippy.
It was cold as
Nipply.
hell
There's no
yesterday.
L needed there.
Oh, is there? Oh, that's my fault.
Damn.
But I had to like skip across the parking lot. They had to be like, "What the hell is wrong with this dude?" It's like I did not want my feet to be on the ground. I could do. It was anything I could do to get inside, get in that sauna, and then you realize you're soaking wet. You got to come outside back in the cold. I'm just over it, man.
Welcome to my world. Come to hot yoga and go outside after that. You're literally like you've been in a pool.
I'm down for that. I don't know how
you
long
wanna
I
come?
could last. Yeah, give me a
love
guest
it.
pass.
We should stream that live on Zone TV.
That'd be great.
Bert does hot yoga.
Oh my God, get the highest ratings ever.
I would absolutely love that. I'd join you, too. That's what should have been our...
You said you would not join me ever for hot yoga.
For one time,
I also
would.
said that.
One
Yes.
time.
I am good.
One time I would. If Bert's going, Kayla,
All right, well,
he's the
don't-
Pied Piper out here.
Don't
Y'all
test
enjoy.
me with a good time. I'll make it happen.
I'm going.
Now,
have
I ain't
fun.
gonna be able to touch my toes or nothing, but I'll
don't need to do that.
I'll do downward dog and sun salutation
I bet
and
you
all
would.
that. Stop it. Those are just the only 2 positions I know from We Fit. My mom used to make it mandatory that we'd get on the We Fit every night. All right, let's check your We Fit age. Everybody come over here. Then we're gonna play some bowling.
I literally just unpacked
Oh,
the
that's
Wii
good.
Fit from my in my new place 2 days ago.
There's so much fun.
That's
man.
awesome.
Love Wii
That's actually pretty
Sports.
cool
Need
right
to go
there.
back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do it. I'm trying to get a sauna.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah,
pretty much.
it's pretty much. It is. I heard it.
So you can start your car 2 times and you're trying to get a sauna.
They're actually very affordable.
What's very affordable?
They are very affordable, but I doubt that you're looking at the very affordable ones.
Exactly.
What do you want me to do? I don't know.
Call me. How affordable
My building
is affordable?
just put one in, so I'm happy with that.
Oh, sweet.
Who did what?
My building just put in a
building
cold
put
one in.
plunge.
Did they?
and a
That's
sauna.
awesome.
Oh, that's sweet.
I never used either of those things before, so I guess I'll have to start now.
That's good for your body. It's hard, though. That cold plunge,
Those
my
toxins.
goodness.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Hey, I'm here for a good time. I'm trying to get all these toxins out my body dealing with Bert every day. So.
Yeah, now listen here. Listen. And I'll give myself some grace. After that Ravens loss, I smoked maybe a pack and a half of cigarettes
Bert.
in like 2 days. Oh yeah, I was down bad. Monday, I was down bad. I stole some of Mike Buckner's cigarettes out of the engineering room.
Was that the pack in the garbage?
No, that was
okay.
that was something else, I guess.
I'm not going to be.
Okay.
I'm not going to make this about myself, but allow me to make this about myself. You better be glad that you see me before you see other hosts, namely the one after us on Mondays after losses. Because I was nice to you on Monday.
You were.
No, yeah, I'm cool with that. It's just, Buck is also, I'll give Buck a lot more credit. Buck gave me Sunday primetime off. He didn't even make me show up
That's nice.
for Sunday
Nice,
primetime. He is mean to like y'all in the F&M Bank chat, y'all listening. Buck is mean to y'all, but secretly, he really likes me. Buck he will never do it in public, never let
gosh.
anyone see it, but he will be so nice to me. He'll text me and be like, "You okay, buddy? You okay? You want me to Uber Eats you a little Frosty or something?" Buck
So he's
cares
fake
about
is what
me.
you're saying.
So,
Yeah,
because that's funny because I feel like he's sometimes nice to us. Then when push comes to shove, I think he
Love big
secretly
people.
hates us.
Nah, I think Buck just likes to keep it ambiguous about where you stand with him. And he would never want the public to be like, "Oh, Buck's a big softy."
Yeah, he called me yesterday too. It was a very, very. That is Buck though. You painted him perfectly.
He called
yeah,
you?
Yeah, he did. That's how Buck is. Buck is he's actually more civil than I think people give him credit for. And what's crazy, the people he's mean to like it. I'm like, y'all continue to like dive into it and become characters, but like he dogs you out. So it is.
All right, that's too much airtime
I'm a
for Buck.
glutton for punishment.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I also was very careful with your emotions this weekend.
No, you weren't.
Ramon
Over the
coulda-
weekend.
You said you were going to be.
Ramon could have dogged me out
With
too
Bert,
if he wanted
I
to.
was good. Now, my homeboy
Everyone
T,
else.
I let him have it. I got some memes, you hear me, in my phone that are treacherous. And I knew Bert, okay, couldn't deal with it as much. All right, so.
I don't like when you phrase it like
No,
that.
it's
I
just-
can deal with it. I'm just an angry individual. I'm like who's the Woosah character with Will Smith, Bad Boys. I'm Martin Lawrence. Like I'm trying
yeah.
to keep myself
Could
Woosah'd
see that.
so I don't snap.
Yeah, and what it was, reason I didn't dive in with you, Bert, is because, one, I did think Baltimore was going to win. Two, I know it was a lot on it. And then my troll to T was actually a little bit different than yours. So you're a different type of troll.
I appreciate you sparing me.
This isn't Mike Tomlin, right?
No, my homeboy T. In,
I was like, is he
Springfield.
secret Baltimore fan?
No,
Mike Tomlin's a lot of things. I don't think he's a secret Baltimore fan.
Yeah, he
you
could
gotta
be
work.
though. He could be.
No,
Y'all do him wrong.
615-737-1045 is our number. Stream the show live at 1045 The Zone TV. Again, Titans president of football operations, Chad Brinker, coming up at 720. We'll ask you, what do you want to hear from him, not only on this show, but when Mike Borgonzi is introduced over at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. Plus, Mel Kiper this morning says there is buzz around one player for the Titans with the number 1 overall pick. We'll dive into that next. Wednesday morning, RKW live on 104.5 The Zone and 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Coming up in 1 hour, Titans President of Football Operations, Chad Brinker, joins the show. What do you want to hear from him? Whether it's here or whether it's at the podium, what do you hope to learn today from Titans brass? We'll get to our thoughts on that as well coming up in just a moment. Your calls at 615-737-1045. So this morning, Mel Kiper has his round one predictions, and for the first time, his mock draft. We made it, ladies and gentlemen, to mock draft number 1. Writing. It doesn't get off to a great start at the beginning of this. Says, I was a fan of Will Levis. Tough. But he was. When the Titans took him early on day 2 in 2023, and there's still a chance he puts it all together. But he hasn't played nearly well enough to keep the job in Tennessee. The Titans had the NFL's second worst QBR at 37.3 and interception total at 21 this season as they bounced between Levis and Mason Rudolph. Quote, I'm sure new general manager Mike Borgonzi will listen to trade offers here, but his real decision should come down to Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders. Again, nothing we haven't known already that we learn here. Quote, I actually have Sanders ranked 1 spot ahead of Ward on my big board. He says that number 4 overall. But Ward has the early top pick buzz around the league, though. So that is where I am leaning for now. Mel Kiper says Cam Ward extends plays with his creativity, mobility, and strong arm. He led the nation with 39 touchdown passes this season, and he'd help put the Titans back on track. So Mel Kiper says there is buzz around Cam Ward of the Titans more so than Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, I can see that being the case. Again, you look at where he played, how he's played also, and everybody is also looking at this. Like the flashy quarterback as of in like the last 3 drafts that has gone first has somewhat been behind the second guy. So everybody I feel like now is looking at, okay, what are the actual real intangible things that this guy's possessing that's going to help us be a winning team? Looking at what Jay McDaniels has done, right, as of late, you got to say to yourself, geez, Chicago, I ain't going to say you messed it up, but you somewhat missed out because you went for the guy that had all the accolades. And the same thing goes with C.J. Stroud. Say what you want to. His last 2 years, he's made it to the second round in the NFL playoffs. And both of those quarterbacks have been picks number 2. So I guess everybody's mindset right now is who is actually the better quarterback, not who's the bigger star. Who's the bigger best quarterback of the 2? And I think the student of the game component of what both these guys possess has to come to the forefront more than just the personalities, more than just what they bring as far as eyes to them. And that's where I'm at with it more than anything.
Yeah, I think people are actually getting to now go back, look at film, get a feel of like what the overall body of work for these 2 quarterbacks have been over the past few years of their career. So it's not just about, oh, everybody's talking about Shedeur Sanders because he's, Deion Sanders' kid. And we all know that he has the tools to possibly be a successful quarterback and has, all the marketing things that come along with it. But I think in terms of Cam Ward, if you really sat down and looked at what he's done over his time in his career in the 3 different spots he's been at, you're able to see a big body of work, and there's still things that need improvement. And I think that's maybe where some people are looking at that is, okay, we can fix those types of things. We can develop this a little more from Cam, and then we get a little more upside just because of the ability for him to extend plays, to do some freakish things. In terms of he's just this natural guy that it comes to him so easily. And I think it's 2 different personalities too. Cam Ward's a little more reserved in terms of how he is, with the media, but the team loves him. That's everything I heard from when he played for Washington State. The guys love to play for him, right? Shedeur is more out there. I mean, he's more of a loud personality.
Absolutely love him too, though. I don't want to take that away from him.
That's not what I'm saying.
Also.
I'm just saying he's more of the louder personality, kind of look at me. There's nothing wrong with that, but they're 2 different types of personalities too.
Is it fair to say one has a clearly higher ceiling than the other in terms of these 2 quarterback prospects?
I don't know at this point because the last 2 draft classes have had me think the opposite. Like Cam Ward having a higher ceiling. What does it look like?
Okay,
He also has a higher, turnover ratio as compared to Shedeur at this point.
Let's go to that then, though, because do we think Jaden Daniels would have been Jaden Daniels with that Bears offensive line?
With the Bears offensive line?
Versus Caleb Williams? Like, if you swap those two guys, are those teams having the level of success that they've had?
Probably not. I think it's probably a little bit more of a stopgate. I think Jaden would have been able to create more considering size and athleticism of either what was willing to do, personalities is the way I look at that.
See, I think Jaden Daniels, and again, it's not to say that, Jaden Daniels is still worse than Caleb Williams. Like, Jaden Daniels looks to be a generational type of prospect. But we said the same things about C.J. Stroud after his first year, and look what happened in year two. I think it's fair to say that Jaden Daniels walked into a situation with a college-centered offense with a really dynamic group of wide receivers that have risen to the occasion along with him, and an offensive line that was better than we thought. Yeah. Caleb Williams, meanwhile, walked into a worse situation. So to that point, I don't think you can make any firm conclusions that one was the better quarterback over the other. It remains to be seen what each of them are. It's going to take time. It might take the entire rookie contract, in my opinion, for us to learn
years usually.
Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders.
Oh,
and I think Cam Ward has the higher ceiling. I think Shedeur Sanders has the much higher floor.
I can roll with that. But it also comes down to your point about Chicago versus Washington. Washington hired a coach that has been around the block a little bit, has the respect of his team, has a system in place, right? And surrounded him with the right coordinator. Like, a lot of what you're asking of these young quarterbacks does come down to systems, right? It really does. Eberflus in Chicago.
Yeah, but we talked about how Chicago had all this talent. I remember specifically talking about that. Yeah. So I don't really agree with Jaden Daniels went to a better situation. I don't agree with
Cliff
that.
Kingsbury and Dan Quinn are a much better situation than a fired head coach and an offensive coordinator that just couldn't
do the job. But the parts around him weren't necessarily from the get-go better. Jaden Daniels made himself better.
Yeah, he did.
But you also got to look at this,
things can be true at the same time.
Guys controlling and having the locker room and heartbeat of the team seems a whole lot different in Chicago than it is in Washington with Coach Quinn. Like, that's the part to me where I feel like, okay, well, yeah, you can put a guy who's great in a really good situation, but if the leadership, the actual projection of the offense, the actual challenging of players isn't the same across the board, then you lose them. Like, I remember walking into that stadium, and guys do their own little thing in general, but when the Titans went there, most quarterbacks get there before everybody else. The Titans team bus was already at the stadium, and there was a spot underneath the stadium where Caleb Williams was supposed to be at. He wasn't even there yet. Okay? So the structure of how you run the program is one thing. And then it's also, I thought it was just, okay, well, maybe he's in there and he doesn't drive and park in that spot. Wrong. He showed up about, 30 minutes after the backup quarterback was in. So to me, that is a structural,
but that's on him
thing.
Too, because he doesn't have to listen to Eberflus saying you don't have to. That should be on Caleb Williams as a rookie quarterback, knowing you're a starter. And that was the one thing I said about Caleb I did not like from USC that he carried over there. And then when times got tough, how did he handle it? That's part of the whole equation.
Here's my point, though, too. When you have a coach that lays that down for a rookie, when you have a coach that has a process and how you want them to move and operate, hey, be at the stadium at this time. Sometimes you do have to guide guys through. And I have a feeling that's the separator between Eberflus being a good coach and fired right now, and Dan Quinn, who's finding his second lap around the map as far as around the world as far as being a head coach. I think when you get fired in these situations, processes do change. You do go find a guy that can be the right coordinator for Jaden Daniels. You do go find the right defensive pieces to surround the team. I didn't think Bobby Wagner was going to be what he was in Washington this year. So I do think Caleb's got his deficiencies. But when you look at the way the coach has handled each one of those guys and surrounded them, despite the talent in Chicago, because there's a lot of young talent too, it just didn't line up for him.
So and now we'll see with Ben Johnson there if that works.
I think the question here then, in the way you make this locally relevant, is how long are you willing to wait for these quarterbacks to meet their ceilings? That's the question the Titans are going to have to ask, right? I think Cam Ward shows you more explosive plays against the structure of the offense outside of the original script. And Shedeur Sanders is going to play more within the structure and the framework of what you tell him to do. There's more variability in what Cam Ward can give you, from the worst moments to the best moments, than both sides being closer to the middle, in my opinion, with Shedeur Sanders. Do you guys see it that way?
Yes,
I see
I
it
do.
that way.
So it all depends on what would you rather have? You want to take the big risk, or do you want more of the known commodity?
Right. I think there's like you said, a high upside in the fact that even when he has those moments where there's a turnover, he makes up for them in such big ways. Now, I think in the NFL, it's different because you've got to limit those. You can't have turnovers all the time. I mean, even Brian Callahan said, we don't want a quarterback who's going to go in there and just turn over the ball. We have to secure it. So there's going to be, I think, teaching moments if you do get a guy like Cam Ward. You've got to improve on those types of things too. You can't just let your play always, overcome all the other things that you're doing in terms of not taking care of the ball.
Yeah, that's going to be key, number one, for him. And also pouring into his team. Like, both guys to me make plays. Both guys to me have attributes that maybe one or the other doesn't have. I think Shedeur is great when he has to scramble around the pocket, find his guys and eyes down the field. I think Cam is good with the deep ball. I think he's probably got a stronger arm than Shedeur right now, and his accuracy of how he can pinpoint certain plays. The issue that I run in with a little bit with Cam was he did, whether you call it some guy, and some guys have this. There is a luck component to some guys' careers that you just say, how in the heck was he able to pull it off? I thought he had a few games in Stanford, if I'm not mistaken, where the ball was on top of somebody else. They end up winning in the last minute.
Cal?
Cal, that's who it was.
He had a bunch of them. Yeah.
He had a few of those. And you can say to yourself, well, that's just luck. I've known guys to get by with a lot of luck in their careers where they just are that type of good. What I have seen from Shedeur has been this. Doing probably more with less in a division where he was expected to play well, and he did. His numbers from last year to this past season got better. His turnovers were good. And that,
he
to
had
me,
more turnovers this past season.
Yeah. But
That's the only thing that got worse.
that's the only thing that got worse. I think he's dealt with it being a whole lot lesser and done more with them, in my opinion.
I almost like that Cam has been in 3 different spots and been successful with them all, because it shows me that you're able to adapt to different things, different places. Look, I mean, you go to Incarnate Ward, a private Catholic school, to Washington State in the middle of podunk nowhere, to Miami, and he's been able to sustain that success in different systems wherever he's gone. I actually like that about Cam.
You can say the same thing about Shedeur Sanders. Played in 3 different conferences in his career.
He did.
And took Colorado from the Pac-12 to the Big 12.
Oh,
And they compete. They were almost in the Big 12 championship game.
had a lot of eyes on Jackson State and absolutely delivered it. So,
They have that in common.
You're splitting hairs with a lot of what both of these guys do. It comes down probably to personality and who answers the right questions.
What do you want to hear from Chad Brinker today?
Me personally, how much time is going to be given? Do you trust that time will be given also? I think that's going to be a huge thing, not just for him and the building, but also for this fan base too. Will he actually say, this is a rebuild? And how far behind are you in this one? Like, players, all right, we'll see what they look like on the field. Heck, we're speaking about guys that get drafted high often in their careers, and they just never really pan out. And sometimes that's on the guy. I want to know what the process looks like over this next few years, and do you actually be able to think you'll see the end of it?
I would start with just the situation. I think we need to put a bow on the whole Rand, situation with him. And after listening to him talk to us during training camp, when they said, we're all on the same page, we're all football guys, what did not work with you and Rand to see that this could be still something you could salvage in the future? What didn't work with you and Rand, I think, is what I want to start with.
And I would also throw in too, delegation of roles. How did you get Mike Borgonzi from Kansas City to Nashville, and what was actually sold to him as far as him being able to do his job?
Sure. I want to know what's different about them. There is a rule in this business that tells you never hire somebody exactly like yourself for difference of opinion, for different perspectives. On paper, it appears that Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi have followed very similar paths to get to where they are. They both speak the Green Bay scouting language, from their times working under John Dorsey, with Borgonzi working under him when he was the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, and obviously Brinker in Green Bay. What's different about them? How do you guard against having similar backgrounds and the groupthink that comes with that? I think is really interesting.
And the other side to me is whenever new GMs come in or the way they're restructuring this thing too, how much of the scouting will change? We spoke about yesterday the type of players that we expect it to be. Like how many more moves will be made as far as the restructuring of the building? Like there seems to be to me there's a lot of just changes and the way they want to run internally with the concepts of like what is a Titan moving forward. And I think that might have been one of the biggest issues that they've had over the last few years. Like how and who do we scout and where?
I know another one that, I think just clarification. I don't know how deep he'll get into this, but when it comes to your role, do you have complete final say? And what does that look like in terms of, free agency and the draft?
Yeah.
How do you go about resolving an issue if it is that you have the final say?
What do you want to hear from Mike Borgonzi? Introductory press conference today.
How can you replicate what Kansas City's done? I mean, being completely honest with you, where do you start? Because he's seen it be started up. I actually think it started in that 2012 draft for them. It was a couple of the draft picks. I know Eric Berry was a part of that also. But how do you kickstart a Kansas City 2.0? You don't have to replicate it case by case with everything that they've done. But what were the talking points to actually get to that point? Because they've seen multiple head coaches. They've seen coordinators come through there. They've seen players that were good and ones that they missed out on. Like the decision to go get Eric Fisher, number 1 overall, when a lot of people didn't think he was worthy of that pick. Why? How? What's the processes of it? Because you're in a position right now, the way we see this team, might be another top 10 season next year, depending on how you're able to build it this upcoming season. What are you willing to do to get to that point to where Kansas City is at this point? Because we can't have a guy like him come from an organization like that for that long and not at least expect some replication of what they've done.
What's the biggest change that needs to happen here in terms of building the foundation? Because I'm curious as an outsider coming in, do you have the parts? Do you feel like it needs to be done differently in terms of the draft or free agency? Like, it's going to be interesting to know what his thoughts are on this organization right now and where they're at.
I would even throw in there, as far as you're behind, this is things I've thought about, as far as you're behind, are you willing to sell big assets to gain new ones? Meaning, if Jeff and his camp does, this is me projecting, and I ain't ever spoke to Jeff about nothing like this. If Jeff wants out, are you willing to deal him for draft picks? Like, I think we're close enough to it, and off-season conversations start up at the combine. Do we not hear that all the time? If he and his camp come to you and want out and don't want to be a part of a rebuild, because it may be 3-4 years out, Jeff will be in year 10 before he gets to that point. Are you willing to get something now instead of getting nothing later? We've heard that conversation be had about Derek at some point, right? Do you do that 2.0 to Jeff?
615-737-1045 is our number. Mike Vrabel has made his first big hire in New England. Josh McDaniels, the OC for Drake May and the Pats. Our reaction and thoughts on that coming up next. Wednesday morning on RKW, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Chad Brinker joins us in studio in a half hour. Your thoughts at 615-737-1045. Mike Vrabel is hiring Josh McDaniels to be the offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots. It is McDaniels' third stint as the OC in New England. Good move?
Steady move, safe move is the way I look at this one. A guy that understands that area, what they need and want. He continues to find home in the New England area, man, is the way I look at it. I think he's one of those types of guys, some guys I know that have been around him, say he's better off in this type of position more than he is the head honcho. And I think Vrabel's got enough presence, keep him in check.
Yeah, I mean, if you want my honest opinion, I just don't like Josh McDaniels, so
why not?
I just don't know. He just rubbed me wrong in terms of every spot he's been, and being a head coach, I think that's where he really kind of just proved like he cannot be doing things at that level. Well, yeah, and that. But as an offensive coordinator, he's fine. Like, it's no surprise that Mike Vrabel is doing this. I mean, it's his buddies. I mean, this is what Mike Vrabel does. It's no surprise he's going to go with everybody he's super familiar with. Some of it might work. Some of it probably won't. And that's when you're going to see if he learned from any of his past mistakes of not firing people when they should have been fired, because he's in charge now of everything over there. And so it's either he learned from those types of things, and when it doesn't work, he's going to fire those people, or he's just going to keep them on way too long, and you're not going to see progress.
I don't know. I mean, he's never worked with Josh McDaniels before.
It's the connection, though, Will. I mean, it's the New England connection. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I just mean, I don't know. I don't think it's a bad hire. I think Josh McDaniels gets a bad rap for being a bad head coach, and he is not a good head coach. But he is the classic NFL guy who's just a good fitted coordinator and does not need any more responsibility.
That's it. That's the only way I view him. Like, again, being under Mike Vrabel is the way I feel like is best for him. It's the same way I felt like he was good under Belichick. Like, the dude clearly has got something in his bag that's good offensively. And teams, or I guess the New England area continue to tap into him and those types of things. Maybe that's just his aura of what New Boston brings to him. But I'm indifferent on him, is the way I feel about him. All I've ever just heard is just like he's better in a secondary role than he is a full leadership. Right. So he's got ways of bringing the best out of guys from time to time, but you got to be one of his types, too, from what I understand.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
To your point, though, about bringing the best out of people, he gave Mac Jones the best year of his career in 2021. He went to a Pro Bowl, was All-Pro,
Pro Bowler, right?
Offensive rookie, number 2, I think, that year. But at 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, almost 4,000 yards. Like a decent year for Mac Jones, who never eclipsed 3,000 yards again once McDaniels went back to the Raiders.
I believe he was there on the same AFC Pro Bowl team as Ryan Tannehill that season.
Let's go.
Oh, he was,
in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
And I think Drake May, in all honesty, I thought he was actually like improving throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure.
So if he can take him to another level, we'll see. But I will give credit to Drake May, in terms of last year. I did think he improved.
From my understanding, Drake May's got a lot of football IQ.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm too close to the scene, but like his from.
Well, you can talk about it now, I feel like.
When folks saw him be that good is when that seat heated up a little bit in New England. And I think that's where Josh McDaniel comes into play, as where Vrabel comes into play to that job in New England. And I think, to your point, Drake May's got a very bright future because he's a football kid through and through, his father and everything else behind it. It was just a matter of surrounding him with a little bit more experience. The same thing I bring up when I talk about Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams with Dan Quinn and Matt Eberflus. Like, it does make a difference with the voices and just the respect component of what head coaches can do for a building. That does go a very long way.
Right. It is interesting because New England, it almost seemed like, I mean, obviously, Robert Kraft fumbled this whole thing by giving Gerard Mayo an opportunity that he had no chance to be successful in, but he did the thing that Chicago should have done last season. And if you know you're probably going to fire the coach, just go ahead and do it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Like Matt Eberflus was a very pre-fired coach. Jerry Jones with Mike McCarthy this past season. Mike McCarthy was the most pre-fired coach in the history of NFL football this season. And what happened? He didn't technically get fired, but his contract just went out. And all of a sudden,
Doug Peterson.
You're looking once again. Doug Peterson, same way. Like, if you're going to fire a guy and you feel like everything's pointing towards that, just go ahead and do it.
Just go ahead and get it out the way.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Especially when you know who you're going to hire to begin with, Robert Kraft, which was Vrabel.
By the way, what a great play by Vrabel to not immediately follow the successful guy in Belichick.
Yeah, right?
I don't want to go into the weeds.
Put a stopper in between.
But I do think there was a little bit of a play because it's just like we bring up DeBoer and Saban. The pressure on DeBoer to actually carry the shield for Alabama. Vrabel now gets to go in and be a knight in shining armor. And, I mean, business is like that sometimes.
You're not lying.
Which is different than what he took over here.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
And that is the part of it that I think nationally is not being discussed. I think there is this idea out there that Mike Vrabel just built the Titans into a really good team, and he helped, for sure. He also inherited a playoff team, so.
And a lot of leadership, man. Wow. The culture was here.
Let's go to Andy in Clarksville, 615-737-1045. Hey, Andy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
Well, you were talking about, the possibility of trading away Jeff, and I hope they don't do that. And I didn't get a sense of that when he was talking at the cleanout day over at St. Thomas Sports Park. He was talking about how he was going to spend the summer mentoring Meatloaf and spending a lot of time together training. And I'm hoping he's training him as a teammate and not just as a fellow lineman. Kayla knows I shoot the Titans home games for News 2, and I can't tell you how many times through my viewfinder I saw a defender inches away from a quarterback and didn't get the sack, and they were that close to a sack all season. And if they can add Carter or Pierce or some other edge rusher, I think they'll make up that several inches of this difference, and that will be the difference in the defense, because the defense was, it wasn't great, but it was good, and I think they're not that far away from getting to the great part, and they can find value in later rounds. I mean, we did with the 5th round with Brownlee, and I'm hoping that's what happens, but I want to see Big Jeff stay a Titan.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate the call.
You're right, Andy. There were so many moments where they just couldn't get even a non-mobile quarterback down, right?
Yeah.
The Sam Darnolds, Mac Jones. I mean, Drake May had a good day on them in terms of using his feet.
By the way, that was me projecting. Jeff never said anything like that either, by the way, Andy. I just need you to know that I was asking the question, what if you have a player that wants that, or Harold Landry, right? Like, they're watching DeAndre Hopkins right now live out his dreams.
Sure.
I mean, there's some of the things you run into when we're speaking about, like, the business. Like, this is another change for Jeff and Harold Landry. You know what I'm saying? Like, how many is this for Jeff? Like, just front office or head coach situations?
It's his third GM.
Third GM, second head coach?
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of change for a guy that feels he's an all-pro caliber and knows he has value somewhere else. That was my projection. That wasn't Jeff or anybody else. Just what would you do if he did come in and say he didn't want to sit through a rebuild?
615-737-1045 is our number. We'll begin hour 2 with headlines around the NFL, including here locally, where if you missed it, Mel Kiper has buzz around one player for the Titans at the number 1 overall pick. Plus, Chad Brinker, Titans president of football operations, joins us in studio coming up at 7:20. All that more coming up in hour 2 next on 104.5 The Zone.
What's going on? 7 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Big show today. Titans President of Football Operations Chad Brinker will join the show in just 20 minutes ahead of Mike Borgonzi's introductory press conference today at 11. A little bit of breaking news for your morning as Adam Schefter is reporting Lions defensive line coach Terrell Williams, who worked with Mike Vrabel right here in Tennessee from 2018 to 2023, is leaving Detroit to become the Patriots defensive coordinator. Lions losing yet another assistant coach. They're going to be brain drain in Detroit next season. Head coach search update as Aaron Glenn has landed back in Detroit via Woody Johnson's plane. No deal as of now, but a substantial offer was made, and the Jets' job is, quote, his if he wants it. Glenn is currently constructing his potential staff, which would ideally include Lions quarterback coach Mike Brunell, and if he doesn't get the OC job in Detroit, which could be in play for the OC for Glenn. A big bounce-back win for the Vols last night as they take down Mississippi State 68-56. Chaz Lanier with 23 points. Felix Okpara finishing with 12 rebounds and 1 point shy of a double-double. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Seven a.m., hour number 2, getting started on your Wednesday morning. RKW with a full crew in studio this morning. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, Robert Walsh makes the show happen. And coming up in 20 minutes, we will be joined by Titans President of Football Operations, Chad Brinker. His first conversation on camera, on audio, since the firing of Rand Carthon and since the hiring, of course, of Chiefs Assistant General Manager Mike Borgonzi, who will meet the media at 11 o'clock. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you're watching on 104.5 The Zone TV, you can see us on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Hit the like and subscribe button while you are there. For much more still to come this morning on a very big show. Rhett Bryan coming up at 8. Philip Forsberg, the Nashville Predators at 9:05. We hit it all this morning, friends.
Yes.
Hey.
I just wanted to mention, too, they had the biggest comeback last night in terms of their franchise. So it was pretty incredible.
We're down 5-1. They won 7-5. Made the extra point and everything.
And they've won 4 in a row.
4
So
in
first time
a row.
this season they've won 4.
Is it time for me to go inside the arena?
Might be.
Might.
We still need to do that
about.
sweet thing.
The sweet
where
thing?
we could all go on a show day. We could do like a Friday or something.
The Lexus Lounge.
Yeah.
That's all I want to see. That's the Lexus Lounge, baby.
Yeah.
Have you been to a win, Ramon?
Have I been to a game?
A win.
A win? You and I went last year, didn't we win?
Did they lose that game?
They lost that game. We won.
Oh, did they?
We did win. we did win.
Right?
I didn't see 1 second of that game.
Either. All I saw was you with that big old turkey leg in your hand.
Hey, that thing was. if you're giving out turkey legs, I'm in there. Renaissance Fair, County Fair. I don't care if it's fair. Give me a turkey leg.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, are just ham for everybody out there. It's never really turkey.
Oh, okay. Or duck.
I don't know if it's duck or not, but I do know it's not turkey. Usually it's ham.
Got it.
This morning, Mel Kiper puts out his initial ESPN NFL mock draft, says there is buzz around Cam Ward to the Tennessee Titans. How much stock do we put in January mock draft buzz?
Not much, right? Because you haven't even seen the bowl games happen yet in terms of the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, or Shrine, East-West Shrine game. Mm-hmm. You haven't seen them go through the combine yet. And I think a lot of it, if you are splitting hairs, like we said earlier about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, some of it will come down to the interview process for sure. Who's a better fit? So right now, I don't put a ton of stock into it, but there are people diving more into film.
I just don't understand Kiper, though. Just the only reason my pushback with him is because he'll do his mocks and he's getting a lot of information because he worked for the big networks and stuff like that, and he's been around for so long. But if you've ever tracked his mocks versus what happens on draft day, he's batting low. Like, he's not even Hall of Fame status with it. So I'm wondering, is this a, hey, let me self-promote myself? Or, hey, is like Chad or whoever reaching out to him and saying, we actually do like Cam Ward or we actually do like Shador.
Right.
You just don't know with him. So I'm with Kayla on that one. Like, I'm hesitant since I've learned his batting average as far as draft picks go.
He's a great television voice. Television character, right? Yeah, he's kind of the godfather of doing this on TV. Doesn't mean he is the most correct evaluator of the film itself. On his big board, for what it's worth, he does have Shador Sanders ranked higher than Cam Ward, saying you won't find a tougher or more resilient quarterback prospect than Sanders, who took 99 sacks over the past 2 seasons, but still put up really strong numbers. He says, I'm really impressed watching him throw on the move, rolling either left or right. He is very accurate in those spots and has the arm to drive the ball. When his mechanics and footwork are sound, he can pick apart a defense. For Cam Ward, he writes, he has an unorthodox delivery, but throws with accuracy and velocity from different arm angles, displayed solid game management traits. And while he had some ball security issues in 2023, that wasn't an issue in 2024. When things break down around him, he can extend his plays, either throwing on the move or picking up first downs as a runner. Mel Kiper says, I like Cam Ward's toughness, swagger, and confidence.
Yeah, I would agree with those last parts.
Numbers 4 and 5 on his big board, which is a lot higher than where most draft analysts have either of those guys ranked.
You know what's super unique about Cam Ward and Shador? They got a lot of video in the offseason with each other.
Yeah, they do.
And here's the thing, too. If
One
you're a
in
person,
particular.
Yeah, it's a couple of them.
Yeah.
It's a couple where you speak about personalities and just drive and competitive edges, and I think both possess that. I have seen Cam be somewhat in an underdog position with Shador on numerous videos, and they video everything these days. And it's fascinating for them to be friends. And I know Deion Sanders is huge on both of those guys also. Like, he calls them all his sons. But I think there's a little bit of just competitive hate from Cam to Shador and how they operate on. And I feel like it's because, like, he really is in a position to where he feels like he's always getting slighted because Shador has a big aura around him. My brother-in-law said they have the same quarterback coach. That's why.
There you go.
They have the same quarterback coach they work out with in the offseason.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tape of those two dudes.
I kind of like that, though. But and I hope they both succeed in the NFL, can have that, throughout their careers.
That.
I agree with you. We need that.
We as a league need those guys to be good. Like, Caleb has to be good.
Yeah.
Like, legitimate, Bryce Young has to be good, because we're moving in an era now where we're past the Bradys and Bens and Breeze, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're past that. This group got to be good moving forward.
Mm.
Terrell Williams, former Tennessee Titans defensive line coach, will be Mike Vrabel's defensive coordinator in New England, as reported literally about 5 minutes ago. And a big move for the guy who was very famously the head coach of a preseason game here in Nashville. Congrats to Coach Williams.
That is well-deserved, man. I know Vrabel, I will give a lot of respect for Vrabel. He's always kind of put him out there to try to get to the next level in terms of coaching. He's given him a lot of opportunities, like you just mentioned, Will. So this is awesome that he's getting a chance to be promoted to a defensive coordinator. I think he'll do a great job. Congrats to Coach T.
Big for him, man. And also, too, just a well-respected guy, smart individual also. And it's good for him. I've had some conversation with him a little bit last year. And I think his son plays hockey. He's going to the perfect area where his son can continue to play outdoors hockey, man. But it's huge for his family, for him. He gets a little bit more stability as it pertains to Vrabel having time there. That's one of the biggest things I think any coach that's going under Vrabel, if they perform, there will be time given for you to get your ship and like afloat as it pertains to them. Only biggest issue that they have, one of the biggest issues that they have, knocking down Josh Allen. Yeah. That's a huge obstacle. Jets aren't much. I don't look at Miami being much at all either right now. That's one of the biggest obstacles, what Buffalo's going to be able to do.
Because it looks like he's taking another step. Right? I mean, he's protecting the ball better. We'll see what happens in Kansas City. But
yeah, I know. It's a big-time weekend coming up. But good on Coach Terrell, though.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Everybody's been knowing he's been wanting something more, and everybody just had to wait their turn. It will be fascinating to see what Dan Campbell does moving forward, though, too.
Now they really better be careful that Jeffrey doesn't say, hey, by the way.
You laugh.
I know, but that just made me think of
What do you
that,
mean?
Ramon.
As far as Jeff going to New England.
You know, his relationship
yeah,
with all of them over there.
I don't think that's a thing.
No,
Where does Detroit last now as far as sustainability?
that's rough.
It's a great question because they are now in a step that great franchises have to deal with. Your coaches start to get poached, and even just watching that fan base interact through that on social media, they are going through it. They don't know what it's like to lose a coordinator. Like, Ben Johnson's dead to us. Like, really? Like, this is kind of what you do, man.
Yeah.
Like,
You're
it's
lucky you
kind
kept
of
him.
part of it. And Aaron Glenn's going to go too, and maybe today, honestly.
Say he was mulling over the job. I think what was the last report?
Feels like Jets and Saints, right?
Yeah.
For Aaron Glenn?
Seems like Jets is the favorite for that one. So we'll see.
Unless they,
Who would you pick between Jets and Saints?
That's a great question. The cap,
Tax-
just because the cap, I'd almost pick the Jets because I do feel like there's a lot of issues with that down there. But I don't know. But the Jets are a crap show.
I'd rather
are.
coach for the
Is
Saints
that-
fan
You know?
base
Is
than for the
that-
Jets fan base.
Is
I like the
that.
Saints better. So
I would probably choose the Saints. There's more room for failure for you to continue to build it back
You
up.
get time, right?
Yeah.
you do.
I think
yeah.
the Saints are definitely the better job.
a hard
I think
one,
it's the
though.
better job. And then, of course, just dealing with, as Kayla just said, the crap show that New York presents itself to.
Thing is, though, like coaches are wired so differently than normal humans.
True.
And it's the reason why Ben Johnson took the Chicago job. And the report out there, like, no, he knows that he'll be viewed as a legend if he's the one
Yeah.
that ends up doing it. Like, you go to those high pressure big markets and you're the guy that fixes it. Oh, all of a sudden, you got a statue outside.
So you never paid for a deep dish pizza ever again in your life in Chicago.
Coming up, Titans president of football operations, Chad Brinker, joins us in studio. We will dive into what made Mike Borgonzi the pick for him at general manager, what roster control looks like, and what changed over the past year after he sat down with us at training camp last season, told us a lot of good things about Rand Carthon. How did we get to this point? A lot to discuss with Chad Brinker. We'll do that next. Put Lead Company on your team and stay ahead of the game with home maintenance, repairs, and more. What's going on? It's Will Bowling. For $12 a month, you can sign up for the Lead Company home maintenance plan and receive 4 visits to your home every year by an experienced technician. And look, this is the time where you need to get Lead Company on your team. The overnight temperatures we've had here in Middle Tennessee, you need to make sure that heating system is ready to go and ready for whatever Mother Nature throws at you here in the mid-state. Let the Lead Company professionals keep your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electrical systems in tip-top shape. Get the very best players on your team today and learn more at leadcompany.com or give them a call at 615-567-1000. That's 615-567-1000 and online at leadcompany.com. That's Lead Company, all you need. RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will live this morning on 104.5 The Zone with a full crew in studio. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, and Will Bowling. Robert Walsh is our producer, and we are pleased to be joined by Tennessee Titans President of Football Operations, Chad Brinker, kind enough to give us a few minutes on a very busy day. Chad, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good to see you. I know a busy few weeks, to say the least, for you guys over there.
It has been. Yeah, we've, we're really aggressive in this general manager search, trying to get ahead of those other teams, and it's just been a whirlwind the last 2 weeks.
Well, let's start with the guy that you got, and Chiefs assistant GM Mike Borgonzi. What stood out about him through this process?
Yeah, I met Mike in 2009. Had a lot of respect for him over the years. Our industry obviously is a small circle, and everybody knows everybody, and I just admired him from afar. But when he came through this process, he was just complete in every way as a candidate. Just the preparedness that he had coming into this interview. I think I said this before. I mean, he probably should have been a general manager 2 years ago. He showed up with this book that was like 260 pages of detailing everything about how to attack the job as a general manager. I mean, he laid out everything. It was just super impressive. He's a really good person, well-respected around the league, and obviously had a lot of success in Kansas City.
Chad Brinker in studio with us this morning here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. You talk about the Kansas City success, and Patrick Mahomes gets so much of that attention, but there is so many other good things that organization has done in the time he's been there. What is underappreciated about their success, and how has Mike contributed to that?
Yeah, obviously they got a great head coach, and Andy Reid. If you remember, he was in Green Bay at one time. And, John Dorsey showed up there years ago, and that's where Mike kind of learned the Packer, draft and develop system, and they maintained that all the way through. Andy Reid was exposed to that in Green Bay. But it's just their process and how they approach that. I think, obviously, when you get a generational quarterback like that, it just changes your fortunes really quick. But they also had to draft that guy as well. And I think when John got there originally, they traded for Alex Smith. I think it was 2 second-rounders to get him, and then they end up drafting Patrick Mahomes after that. But really, like in any organization, it comes down to the quarterback, the head coach, and GM. And Mike has been in that inner cabinet for a lot of years now with Andy Reid and Brett Veach, Chris Shea, and Mike has been part of all those major decisions for at least the last 5, 6, 7 years now.
Chad Brinker in the studio with us this morning. Chad, when it comes down to Mike Borgonzi being the GM here too, like coming from Kansas City, he's been there since 2009. Is there like an expectation of him getting this job and also trying to be in a position to replicate what Kansas City has?
Yeah, I think when we set out to identify the candidate that we're looking for as we prepare for this, there was basically like 9 attributes that we were grading all these candidates on. And Mike checked the box in all 9 of those. And one of the big things that was really important to us, because I discussed this with our owner, the draft and develop philosophy, it's not an original thing at all. It's, everybody talks about it, but can you truly execute it and be disciplined about it? And I think that part with Mike, he knew the language, and we spoke the same language. When we talked players, we knew exactly, when he said this guy's a 55, I know what he's talking about. We just had that common ground, that common language, and Mike really understands that system. He's kind of modernized it a little bit, and it's evolved a little bit during his time in Kansas City. But being able to blend the 2 organizations, it's been, Green Bay, 30 years of success, and Kansas City for over the last decade. It's that's one of the elites of our league right now, and Mike's a very smart guy. He's an Ivy League guy. Played the game. He's worked his way up. Didn't miss a step all the way through. He's held a lot of different positions in that organization, and I just felt like it's someone that can really push us forward, and I'm looking forward to working with him.
When you look at that situation, so you have a new GM, fresh new head coach, yourself in a role, and just a lot of change in general. How do you look at this process this time around as far as time? Because in this league, it does sometimes. Like I've seen guys get cut, go somewhere else and be better. How do you view this step for you guys as far as being allowed to let it grow?
Yeah, I think it starts up top. I've had a lot of conversations with our owner about this and what draft and develop system really means and what that looks like and the patience that it requires. But I also understand that there needs to be an urgency as well. That's hard to balance those two things, especially in the world that we live in right now. Everybody expects instant success. And like I said before, there's no quick fixes, especially when it comes to this. So, the process, ideally, if we could map it out perfectly, you'd really want about 30 picks over the next 3 years. And, 12 of those need to come in the top 100. And you got to be selective in free agents and find the right veterans to kind of balance out a young roster. If I can map it out perfectly, that's, you can get a generational, talent right off the bat. But sometimes it doesn't always work that way. So, but the system does work. And if you allow it to work. So, Amy is completely bought in to this philosophy. It's been tough. Yeah. It's been really tough the last couple years, and especially for her too. What she's been through and with the team and making the tough decisions that she's made. Nobody wants to be put in that position where you're changing out dignitaries every year and all that. That's not where we want to be. So hopefully we can get this thing moving in the right direction. I can't make any promises right now of where how we're going to flip this thing in 1 year, 2 years. All I can promise is that we're going to get to work, we're going to implement this system, and, we'll ultimately be judged in the end.
Absolutely.
Chad Brinker joining us, President of Football Operations this morning on RKW. I do have to ask the question because, we are here for the fans as well, but just in terms of maybe what didn't work with Ran Carthon here and why you guys decided to go in a different direction.
Yeah. I'll say this. First and foremost, I have the utmost respect for Ran Carthon. He means a lot to me. Professionally as well as personally. He's a friend. And, this all happened so fast. And I think people forget there's a human element to all this. And I'm still trying to allow my thinking to catch up to my feelings, because the decision was made and then immediately it was, Amy and I talked. She's like, we got to, we're going to go find a general manager. And I had to flip into we got to find a general manager mode. And, Ran is, it's disappointing that we got to this spot and, I miss him. And like I said, he's a good friend. He's a bright football mind. We know what we signed up for in this league. This is a tough and unforgiving business. It's a hard business. You know that, Ron, you played in this league and you understand what that's like. And, I've heard people say it's a good business, but it's a difficult life. And I really understand what that means, and especially in the position that I'm in now. And they say it's lonely at the top. I'm kind of feeling that. I understand what that means a little bit now. But again, Ran, we won 3 games this year and 9 in the last 34. And ultimately, it just wasn't good enough. None of us was good enough, me included. We got to get better in all phases. And unfortunately, it ended up the way it ended up. And like I said, Ran and I've talked. He knows we're friends and we have great respect for one another. And I love his family. They're just great people. And it's just disappointing we got to this point.
Chad, when it comes to the title of general manager, I know, and I want you to clarify this, you have final say over the roster, correct?
Yes,
when it's
correct.
all said and done.
Yeah.
When it comes to maybe a decision that you and Mike Borgonzi come to, whether it's free agency or the draft, how do you guys go about maybe settling difference of opinions in terms of, since you do technically have the final say?
Yeah, a lot of people make a big deal about this.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Really?
I think it's going to be interesting when you all get a chance to talk to Mike later today. Let him talk about that, why this job was attractive to him. Andy Reid's got final say in Kansas City, and every organization, it's different. Sometimes a head coach has it, a general manager has it, an owner, Jerry Jones has it, now a president has it. So it's I think it's way overblown. And Mike will probably touch on that a little bit because we've talked about it. I think people think that, Mike's going to go up to the draft board and he's getting ready to pull a name tag off and I'm going to run up there and slap his hand and say, no, we're taking this guy instead. That's not how this works. we're going to be working together through all this. Every decision that's made is going to be a we decision. Obviously head coach is going to be involved. I mean, we're going to be working on this together. I think the thing that you don't want happening, and especially what Amy doesn't want happening, is which could happen in organizations where a head coach runs up the back stairwell and the GM runs up the other side of the stairwell, and then she wanted a football executive that can handle that and manage those relationships, and we work together within the room. And one example, I talked to one of my mentors in this league, John Schneider. He went out to Seattle. He didn't have final say. Pete Carroll had it, and I asked him, like, how often did this actually come up? And he couldn't really remember a time where Pete just threw the hammer down on him. He said, sometimes there's going to be times you're going to disagree. You want that. You want healthy debate in the room and all that. But at the end of the day, if you just simply cannot come to an agreement on whatever that particular player, well, let's go find another player that we both agree on.
Chad Brinker, Tennessee Titans president of football operations, our guest this morning in studio. Chad, how many plans for the quarterback position did you hear from general manager candidates during the interview process? And what are some of the things that you and Mike are going to value in that position moving forward?
Yeah, it's the most important position in football, most important position in sports, really. So it's really key that we get that right. Obviously, we have Will Levis here. We got to continue to see him develop and grow, and he's going to get an opportunity to compete for a starting job next year. But at the same time, we got to do our due diligence on that position as well, whether that's in free agency or the upcoming draft. Every candidate we met with, we talked about these things and just kind of hear how they feel about the position, how they feel about Will, how they feel about the free agency class as well as the draft class. So there was a variance of the opinions throughout the process and some really good ideas on how to attack it. And Mike and I are going to work together, and that's something that we're going to it's priority number one.
As you guys hit the ground running, East-West Shrine Bowl practices getting started, Senior Bowl coming up as well. What is the first order of business for you and for Mike to be sure that this organization is ready for the big opportunity it has with the number one overall pick?
Yeah, we're leaving tomorrow night, and we're heading down to the East-West game. Shedeur Sanders is going to throw on Friday and do some interviews, so we get a chance to go down there and meet him. I got to see him this fall and spend some time at Colorado. I went out and saw a lot of these quarterbacks during the fall, but and then other players. I think I saw over 50 draftable players during the fall. But we're going to do the East-West together and then head down to the Senior Bowl right after that and evaluate these prospects. And as soon as we get back, we'll jump right into the free agency meetings with our pro staff, and that will run right into the college draft meetings. Our process is a little unique and different, maybe a little old school. We call it no daylight in the month of February. We'll be in that draft room literally the entire month, 7 days a week, 7 to 7. We're going through every prospect in the country at every single position, watching not key plays or highlight tapes. It's actual game tape. And we'll start at offensive tackles, and we'll work all the way across every position from the top of the board all the way through the undrafted free agent class as well.
So you said quarterback, the most important position, but you mentioned offensive tackle first. Okay,
gotta get your love on the show.
Protect that quarterback. You know that.
You better believe it, Chad. With that being said, though, not to devalue the first number one overall pick, but how friendly is everybody towards you guys? Considering you do have the first overall pick, some teams want a quarterback, need a quarterback just as much as any other team in the NFL. Man, I know we've talked before on the practice field about picks are important to a team. Your guys are important as far as the quality of picks you have. How, open are you to the idea that somebody come calling, then you might answer that as far as moving back and collecting more picks?
Yeah, we got to look at all the options. But the one thing I will say, if there's a generational talent, you don't pass that up. You can't pass that up. And if we feel that there's a generational talent right there, what we call a blue player, a guy that is a franchise-type player, the player that tips the field in your favor every time they step on the field, you cannot pass that up. But we'll also look at all the options, not only at the number one overall pick, but in all the rounds. We got to see what the value is. We got to see what's on the table. We got to, do what's best for the Tennessee Titans and helping us build a football team that can sustain over time. I've emphasized how important the draft is, that the core of this roster is going to be built through the draft. We're looking at all those options.
It may be a question for Mike Borgonzi, but I brought this up earlier just simply because you mentioned this league is a hard league on you in a lot of different ways, mentally, physically. Losing hurts. Families feel it. Everybody feels it. If you're presented with a situation between you guys where a guy like Jeffrey or Harold decide to, hey, they want to explore somewhere else. Like, where are you guys as far as keeping those guys Titans, or just saying to yourself, the value of this team is probably going to be better because we're able to accumulate picks because they want out and teams want them too?
Yeah, let me say this. I want us to get to a spot where we're homegrown in our own superstars. And with that being said, when it comes to Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry, as tough as this season was, those guys did not quit. Gotcha. They played hard all the way to the end. And there's just something about, when a franchise drafts you, they develop you, and then they ultimately pay you. Like, there's a loyalty there. And you can feel that in the locker room, like a Jeff and a Harold. Like, people, like, it just means more to guys like that. And that's the type of guys we want on our football team, that the young guys are coming in and seeing, well, that's how you act like as a pro. That's how you be a pro. Look at Jeff, look at Harold, look at these guys that have been here. They came in here, they were drafted by the organization, they were developed, and they were paid by them. And look how they're playing for the organization. It means more to guys like that.
Chad Brinker with us, Titans President Football of Operations. Chad, when it comes to the quarterback position, drafting to quarterback, and you have an opportunity to do that, and I know Mike Borgonzi was there when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, but Alex Smith was there and he sat behind him. Is there kind of a logic to how you'll go about this when it comes to possibly taking a quarterback early on? And what are you looking for if you do go that route?
Yeah, it's everybody knows where I grew up in this business and how we did it up north. Yep. Ideally, I watched, the Aaron Rodgers, he sat for 3 years, and then, we drafted Jordan Love, and Jordan Love sat behind Aaron for 3 years. I mean, I wish it can be that way. I can't predict what that's going to look like. But ideally, you'd like those young guys to sit. Even Patrick Mahomes sat for a year behind Alex Smith. So, yeah, ideally that would be great. Allow them, give them the chance to learn and how to be a pro, because it's really tough to go out there as a rookie and get thrown out there, and particularly, if you don't have your offensive line shored up and you're just, teams are pressuring you and you can't protect, and it's just so much coming at these guys. It's hard to play that position, but it's a position where you definitely have to meet the physical requirements to play the position, but it's really a neck-up position. Like, the mental quickness and the instincts that you have to have. You got to be able to see things other people can't see, feel things that other people can't feel, and you recognize it. Everybody can recognize it. It doesn't take a scout to see that. The ones that are the great ones, when you watch a game on television, it's just some guys have a sixth sense, and they just feel things and they do things, and you're like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And that's the type of a guy. Of course, arm strength, accuracy, and pocket mobility, and all those things come into play. But at the end of the day, it's the instincts. It's the spontaneous instincts. I mean, Bill Walsh talked about this a lot, and I had under Mike McCarthy, he worked for Bill Walsh and brought all these quarterback tapes. And I used to study them up in Green Bay. Their quarterback school is what they called it, and learned a lot during that time while watching those tapes and learning from Mike and the group there. But it really is a position that's neck up.
Chad, when it comes to looking at the overall roster right now, and I've heard you say many times, we want to build up right from the draft. We want to be homegrown. What's the part of the roster where you feel like they really need the homegrown love right now?
Yeah. We got a lot of holes in this roster we need to fill. We're never going to pass up on a good football player. But in this league, you win off the edges. You got to be able to protect the edges. You got to be able to get after the quarterback off the edges. You got to be able to take the ball away. You got to be able to score touchdowns. So, I mean, it's those premium players at premium positions that you can never have enough of them.
Chad Brinker in studio with us this morning on 104.5 The Zone. Chad, when you look at your resume and Mike Borgonzi's and just the pathway you guys took to the roles you're in now, feels like, just from listening to what you're saying, there are a lot of similarities in both of your backgrounds and the languages that you speak. What is the challenge in that, right? Of speaking the same language, and there's this idea in this business, you never hire someone exactly like you. How much do you guard against that and still listen to outside and different perspectives within your organization as well?
Yeah, I think the goal was to find the absolute best general manager candidate that we can possibly find. And I always believe that you want to hire people that are smarter than you, that will push you and elevate your game as well. And I think Mike brings that. And sure, there is some similarities in our backgrounds, but my role has evolved. I spent a lot of time under Russ Ball in Green Bay and learning the executive side of this business. Mike has spent a lot of his time, even as the AGM, overseeing the personnel, college and pro, and that's what he does every day. He gets up and all he thinks about is building a roster and watching tape. My role has evolved. I can do some of those things, but I also have the salary cap background and background on the ops side, and just to be able to support him in those areas, to allow him to. People don't. This industry is just, it's exploded. It's growing. I mean, the coaching staff's size has doubled. The personnel staff size has doubled. Analytics, football information systems didn't exist a decade ago. Now you have those groups. Everything, equipment rooms doubled. A video group doubled. Like, everything's just grown. And then you're asking a general manager, first-time general manager, to what got them that job is they're really good at identifying talent and picking the players, and then you bring them in the organization, you drop them in there and said, oh, by the way, you got all this too. Now, you got to fix this team, because that's why you're here, is because the roster's not in great shape. So we need you to fix this team, but 80% of your day is figuring out everything else, and 20% of it is actually doing what got you the job in the first place. So, again, this setup that we have will allow Mike to really thrive in what he's really great at, and I can support him in that area, but also take those other things off his plate. So I'm looking forward to getting to work with him.
Well, Chad, there's no doubt there is not a front office in the NFL that has run more trap plays and run between the tackles as you guys. I mean, a fullback and a running back together, right?
Crazy.
I don't think there's anybody that's going to fill that gap and try to stop you guys running up the middle.
I mean, seriously, a fullback. Like, I'll be honest with you, it's one of them rosters. I'll be like, I don't know if I want to play for that dude. Like, fullbacks are maniacs. Okay, so I'll put that one. But
we'll run a lot of ISO.
Oh my gosh. With that being said, though, too, we're speaking about plays and everything. Where's Coach Brian Callahan in this equation as far as what he's asking of you guys too? Because a lot of what you guys do is what he's got to deliver upon, the planning for the types of guys that he want going into this next year and potentially longer future for him here in Nashville.
Yeah, Brian and I got together prior to us starting the general manager search. He was involved in this too, and he was super impressed with Mike as well. But we talked a lot about how we're going to build this roster moving forward, and the importance of the draft and develop system. And Brian was in Cincinnati, which they didn't do a lot in free agency there. So he understood it. And they have small staff sizes there. I mean, he was out. He's going to he and Denard and Nick, and we got Peyton as well at McCollum. He's at the I think the East-West coaching there. So we got our coaches going out too. And Brian wanted to do that. He wants to get out and see these players as well. And we want him to do that. So Brian's going to be a major part of this as well. We believe in Brian. Obviously, we talked about this already. We all know every one of us has got to get better. Yeah. This year was not good enough. It's not good enough. And we know what can happen when those things, when you don't win. And we want to help Brian to grow into the head coach we believe that he can be. So he's obviously going to play a major part in this. That's our head coach. No doubt. Like I said, the quarterback, head coach, GM, like that in that order. Like it's the most important thing in your franchise.
Chad, one more thing from me. Do you guys plan on hiring an assistant general manager? And if so, what do they play in terms of their role?
Yeah, we're still working through all those things right now. I think there'll be more to come. We're not there yet, but there'll be more to come.
He is Chad Brinker, Tennessee Titans president of football operations, beginning a very busy day here with us on Ramon, Caleb, Will. Chad, really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah.
I got one more.
Okay.
You knew I had to. Appease me real
I know
quick.
that look in his eye very well.
Yeah, right.
Of course, this is what offensive linemen do. We here to break the ice, all right? Drake or Kendrick Lamar.
Of course you would.
As my petty
We
side.
actually we
Now,
were wondering what you listened to because we always play music
I say
coming
Drake.
in.
you go, Drake.
Yeah.
Go there. Here we go. Certified level boy.
Chad Brinker with us in
R&B
studio.
to answer.
I love it.
I love it. We know that for next time we sit down with you. Chad, we really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Chad.
More Ramon, Caleb, Will coming up. RKW continues this morning on 104.5 The Zone. And again, thanks to Chad Brinker for stopping by in studio. If you missed that conversation, we will continue to react. And you can hear it in its entirety on the 104.5 The Zone podcast network, Apple, Spotify, 1045thezone.com. Guys, initial reaction?
Good. Gave a lot of answers.
Yeah.
Didn't really give a lead on what they wanted. I was just telling them he went from a quarterback to an outside edge to a left tackle. Not much you can say. Even asked about the trade too, man. But the acknowledgement that this team got a lot of holes, I thought was very unique considering they're picking number one.
Yeah, and you could go anywhere way with that, right? Even if they didn't want a quarterback, guys, they have to maybe sell it like they want one to get the most out of that number one overall pick. I think the basics, too, that people were wondering about were answered, too, in terms of, does he have final say? Yes. Does that mean that single thing is going to be his way and, or the highway? It didn't sound like it with in terms of Mike Bergonzi's part in that, in deciding things when it comes down to it. So I thought that was good to get that answered as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Good conversation. Hope you got the answers you was looking for. I thought every corner of the court got tapped into.
For sure.
A couple of notes and highlights of what he told us. Talked about the quarterback position being a neck-up position, and talked about quarterbacks needing spontaneous instincts, which I thought was interesting. Certainly describes both the guys that are in the mix at the top. It certainly describes Cam Ward.
Yeah, it does. And not just that. I mean, the idea that you just can't pass up on the generational talent. The acknowledgement of it, and also just the time. Like, I'm saying the conversation with Miss Amy about, look, she gets what this is going to be moving forward. I think that's one of the more important things that came out of it today. There was a lot that came out of it, but we've spoken about that. It's like the only thing that can save you in this league is winning, and you need time to actually establish that type of stuff moving forward. So we'll see. And also the doubling down on Jeff and a guy like Harold Landry. I thought that was unique also.
Absolutely. Because when it's all said and done, you do need a leadership part of this team. And right now, Big Jeff is that guy until they start bringing in some of these homegrown guys and they develop into those leaders of this team, and then to what your identity of this team wants to be.
Right.
But it is clear that they want to build from the ground up. And I'm sure free agency, when you got to make moves, they'll make those moves. But the priority is building a homegrown team.
The words from Chad Brinker were, when you have homegrown talent like those guys, it just means more when you develop and pay them.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
I would not expect Jeffrey Simmons to be moved this offseason if that is something you think they might do.
He mentioned that in the sense of like drafting guys too. And when he was talking, I honestly felt the same thing. It's like the sentiment is like, whenever you come up through one organization, I felt that too. Like there's a you know what I'm saying, the longing for allegiance to how you feel towards them. There's, hey, I'm one of you. You're me. Like it goes a long way, Will, to what we and Kayla, from what we've tried to, say time and time again. You gotta establish or reestablish. I ain't gonna act like they ain't have no culture here. Reestablish what is the culture in Nashville, Tennessee.
And I do think it is interesting when Kayla asked about the roster control element of it and the way that works, wanting to replicate the Kansas City model, because the GM doesn't necessarily have final say there either. And I think that's the really interesting piece of it. Andy Reid is the guy in Kansas City, similarly to the way Bill Belichick was the guy in New England. So if you are looking for someone who thinks this job is attractive and who is understanding the role they're walking into, it is someone who comes from an organization where the GM doesn't have roster control. And I think that's a really interesting caveat that maybe doesn't get talked about enough, that Kansas City is one of the other organizations that has a similar model to what you are about to implement. It's just the head coach that has that say versus the president of football operations. 615-737-1045. Rhett Bryan joins us in studio coming up next as Hour 3 on RKW begins after this.
It's Ramon Foster, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Y'all, they've been in business since 1990 and are family owned and operated. Jimmy Hiller, he was recently named among the most admired CEOs because of the way he truly cares for his team and his clients. Me, myself, all right? I'm a client of his also. We had some product that had to be brought back to the house yesterday. They forgot, you know what their guarantee is? Happy you'll be, and the service is free. Brought it right over to our house, dropped it right on the front porch for us, man. The Hiller drainage is what they have for us, man. Listen, if a customer isn't pleased with the work that's performed around your house, they will make it right. And for myself personally, they made it right. They're always professional. They have experienced and trustworthy technicians also that come to your home, and they will leave it cleaner and better than what they found it. Also, what you can expect from Hill is this true transparency pricing. When you get your bill, there are no surprises whatsoever, all right? Homeowners can easily understand what they're paying for and why. This is what Hiller does. No hidden fees, no added costs, no surprises. For more details and to book with Hiller, visit happyhiller.com.
What's going on? 8:01, good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Big show today. Titans President of Football Operations Chad Brinker joined the show in studio at 7:20 ahead of Mike Borgonzi's introductory press conference today at 11. You can find that wherever you download your podcast at, and the YouTube video will be uploaded momentarily. Head coach search update as Aaron Glenn has landed back in Detroit via Woody Johnson's plane. No deal as of now, but sources say a substantial offer was made and the Jets' job is, quote, his if he wants it. Glenn is currently constructing his staff, which would ideally include Lions quarterback Mark Brunell if he doesn't get the OC job in Detroit, who would be in play for the OC for Glenn. A big bounce-back win for the Vols last night as they take down Mississippi State 68-56. Chaz Lanier, 23 points. Felix Okpara finishing with 12 rebounds and 1 point shy of a double-double. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second half of the show starts right now on RKW. Ramon, Kayla, and Will in studio on a big morning here for the Tennessee Titans and for this radio program. The third quarter of the show beginning right now. That's what Rhett Bryan tells you on 104.5 The Zone TV. If you watch it there, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and or Twitch. That's where you see Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Bowling, and the executive producer at Titans Radio, Rhett Bryan, who joins us right now. Rhett, good morning.
Top of the morning to you. And boy, it's a chilly one.
Yes, it is.
It was 3 degrees at my house when I left this morning.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Lucky for you, we warmed your seat up for you.
That's
Thank you,
true.
good buddy.
There you
Thank
go,
you,
Bert.
Chad Brinker, President of Football Operations, Tennessee
Yes.
Titans. Great interview, you guys. That was good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
You know, I think it was very interesting. There's lots of takeaways from that. Certainly with, ownership and 9-25 in the last 2 seasons, not acceptable in anybody's eyes, but certainly not the ownership. And I thought it was interesting, his insight on Mike Borgonzi, who we will hear from later today at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, and then just the philosophies of the draft and the construction of the team. Because, I'm sure he's spoken about that at some point in his, availability to us, but I felt like he dove a little deeper in that. Yeah. So, and so they're doing their due diligence on quarterbacks. You heard him say he's going to the East-West Shrine game.
Yeah.
And Shedeur Sanders is going to throw down there on Friday, and then they're going to make their way over to Mobile and get ready for the Senior Bowl. So they're doing all their stuff. And then, like any good person in his position, you got the number 1 pick. We're open to all suggestions.
Yeah.
So
I know, right?
give me a call. Better call Saul.
He also gave 10 different answers on the first overall pick. He said quarterback. He said tackle.
Generational prospect.
Generational prospect.
A blue player.
Yeah, blue player. Also mentioned edge. So I ain't got a clue at this point.
Well, let me say this. We know there's one damn good edge player at the top.
Whew. Yes.
Abdul Carter. But let me tell you something else. Next week, big man, we're going to see some underclassmen edge players and some D linemen. Pretty damn good.
Bringing it.
Pretty
Absolutely.
good.
Bringing it. I can't wait to see it. It should be a good back and forth. I do, to your point, think the early advantage goes to the D-line. As far as the Senior Bowl goes, I think they have a little bit more talent on that side of it right now.
Yeah, and you look at, Emory Jones Jr. of LSU. He's a right tackle. And I told you guys last week about a guy I'm interested to watch, Ozzie Trapillo, whose father played for the New Orleans Saints and was also an offensive lineman. He's a right tackle from BC. Started left tackle 3 years ago, last 2 years at right. Josh Connerly from Oregon will be one people will be watching. There's some left tackle prospects there. But the bigs always gets it started.
Absolutely.
With those O-line, D-line drills down in the end zone. So, but, there is there are quite a few. Again, some people are touting this as the greatest Senior Bowl roster that Jim Nagy and crew have ever put together. And some people, I mean, the Senior Bowl's been around, what is it, 70? It'll be the 76th Senior Bowl.
When did he take over?
He took over back in 2018.
Okay.
I want to say,
2018
something
is
like
the
that.
number I had in my head as well.
He's done a great job with it.
Oh, it's amazing. And you're talking about a guy that's done this.
It was 18.
Okay.
You're talking about a guy that's done this for a living, too.
Yeah, he was a scout.
So-
That's where he cut his teeth, yeah.
But, looking forward to going to the Arthur Outlaw Convention Center in downtown Mobile.
Yay.
Just got snow on the ground right now, too.
We will talk. I was just telling Ramon, I sure am glad that we are not down there and we are having the Senior Bowl this week, because yesterday's practice would have been covered with about 8 inches of snow.
And in the old schedule, it would have been this week. I saw Jim Nagy put that out yesterday.
First practice would have been yesterday.
In the original Super Bowl timeline, it would have been yesterday. Crazy.
That winter storm down there is unbelievable. I mean, it broke weather records, obviously, with the snowfall accumulations they had that were as old as when they had started keeping weather records in the late 1800s.
There's snow in Destin. Like where Brentwood and Middle Tennessee and all these, like Williamson County migrates for spring break, there's snow on the ground there. Right
Absolutely.
now. It's crazy.
And now we're not talking about a dusting or a coating. We're talking about massive amounts. Yeah.
Right.
Stuff that they're, I saw I-70 and I-10, I should say, in a 70-mile stretch there from Pensacola on over going east was shut down due to just this massive whiteout of snow. And again, those that come from the north that move here, like, you guys aren't prepared to handle. They are certainly not prepared down there because they hardly ever see it.
Right.
They ain't even got a truck. All they can do is what Dallas did when we played in the Super Bowl there, throw sand on the roads, and that actually doesn't make it better.
I actually saw what they had yesterday in one town. I saw they had a large Caterpillar front-end loader with a bucket that was just scraping the roads, and it did the job.
Yeah.
But, if you're looking for a salt truck and nope.
You know what they use in Arizona for the snow? They get snow around the Grand Canyon and whatnot, Flagstaff and everything. They use volcano rock. Is economically better. Yeah.
Sounds like a fake Bonnaroo band name. When we play
Volcano rock.
Yes, they do. They use like volcano rock or canyon rock on the roads. Yeah, it actually works just as good as the salt solution.
It's got pumice in it.
Again, offensive lineman with fun facts that we have no idea.
Rhett, I thought it was interesting in what Chad Brinker talked about at the quarterback position specifically, talking about that being a neck-up position, but also valuing spontaneous instincts. You really can talk about both quarterbacks at the top of this draft within that realm, because neck up and maybe the guy that is more traditionally smart at that position probably describes Shedeur Sanders. But then you talk about spontaneous instincts, you're probably talking more about Cam Ward. Even within that answer, it felt like Chad Brinker really left the door open about both of those prospects having characteristics that he likes.
Well, and the other part of it, too, is just the way this game is moving. I mean, look right now at Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
He's in the NFC Championship game, and they're doing something that I never really thought was completely possible at the NFL level. They're playing college offense. They're running a college offense that is honed to his skill set, and it is working quite well. Now, I'm fascinated by what 2025 season will bring to see if defenses and those things have adjusted to that.
Because there's always that, right?
There's always that.
There's always the adjustment.
So, but yeah, the dual threat quarterback stuff, I mean, it started back in the late 80s, early 90s with, Randall Cunningham, and obviously we saw Steve McNair, and then Mike Vick, your old teammate there for a minute in Pittsburgh, what he did in Atlanta. And so, you can see it going that way more and more all the time. But I think it is interesting what Chad Brinker said, that, it is certainly, it's a cerebral game. I mean, you heard Brian Callahan talk about it. I think it was on his last Brian Callahan show, coach's show of the season, to wrap up the season. It's the hardest position in professional sports to play.
It is.
Hands down.
Because you have to know, you don't just have to know you and your receivers, routes and opens and reads and all those things. You got to know what the defense is. I mean, you got to know it all, basically. Imagine being the guy wearing the green dot on defense, only you're distributing the ball.
And telling everybody what they need to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
A couple quick headlines. First and foremost, programming note for 104.5 The Zone. New Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi will join 3HL at 5 o'clock today.
Hey now.
So that is for starters. And then one Titans headline from Jeremy Fowler 1 minute ago, who writes, Titans tight ends coach Justin Alton did not sign with the team past the 2024 season and is now a free agent, he says, per source. So, again, staff changes. I know John Fossil, the special teams coach, has been reported out there by reputable people. And then now Justin Alton being out. These things are fluid, and I would imagine we'll get more clarity and more updates on staff and if there are any other changes in the coming days.
We'll see if Justin Alton ends up getting an interview possibility in New England because he was here in Vrabel's. I mean, he's bringing the band back together.
It's a connected league.
Coach T, Terrence Williams, is going to be the defensive coordinator. I think that's fantastic.
That's huge, yeah.
Is he going to be the named it or is he interviewing for it? I can't remember.
No, he's named.
That's what I thought.
He's there.
Yeah.
He's got his OC in DC.
Reported, yep.
Josh McDaniels. How about that?
Rhett Bryan in studio with us as we continue this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Chad Brinker talked about roster control with us. We can react to that and hear the audio once again. Plus, he made a point about blue prospects. How many of those are in this draft? We'll talk to Rhett Bryan about that as well, coming up next.
Nashville is one of the best cities to live in. You and I both know that. And there are plenty of options here, sometimes too many, some that overwhelm us. But if you're just looking for a real estate agent that you can trust, you need to check out my friend Bernie Gallerani. Bernie Gallerani has years of experience. He's got a proven track record to go along with that. And he's not going to let you down. In fact, he's going to guarantee to sell your home in 30 days or less, or he's just going to buy it from you. Selling a home, we all know it can be overwhelming. But for John, working with Bernie Gallerani Real Estate made the process faster and easier than he could ever imagined. He couldn't believe how quickly his house sold from the start. The team was on top of everything, offering expert advice on staging and always being available to answer questions. Bernie Gallerani is the only real estate agent you can trust and recommended by Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank. And he's the only agent I would trust to sell my home. Give him a call on his cell phone, 615-428-2644. That's 615-428-2644. Or go to BernieGallerani.com.
RKW 104.5, The Zone rolls on this Wednesday morning. Rhett Bryan in studio. Full crew here. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Coming up at 9:05 this morning, Philip Forsberg. Nashville Predators forward. Preds go down 5-1, win 7-5 last night. The extra point was good. So we'll talk to him about that, about the 4-game win streak coming up in our number 4. Rhett, one interesting comment I wanted us all to react to here from Chad Brinker on the show this morning was about roster control specifically, and a lot that has been made of that. This was the Titans president of football operations here with us just a few minutes ago talking about exactly that.
Chad, when it comes to the title of general manager, I know, and I want you to clarify this, you have final say over the roster, correct? When it's all said and done.
Yeah.
When it comes to maybe a decision that you and Mike Borgonzi come to, whether it's free agency or the draft, how do you guys go about maybe settling difference of opinions in terms of, since you do technically have the final say?
Yeah, a lot of people make a big deal about this.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Really?
I mean, I think it's going to be interesting when you all get a chance to talk to Mike later today. Let him talk about that, why this job was attractive to him. I mean, Andy Reid's got final say in Kansas City, and every organization, it's different. I mean, sometimes a head coach has it, a general manager has it, an owner, Jerry Jones has it, now a president has it. So it's I think it's way overblown. And Mike will probably touch on that a little bit because we've talked about it. I think people think that, Mike's going to go up to the draft board and he's getting ready to pull a name tag off, and I'm going to run up there and slap his hand and say, no, we're taking this guy instead. That's not how this works. I mean, we're going to be working together through all this. Every decision that's made is going to be a we decision. Obviously head coach is going to be involved. I mean, we're going to be working on this together. I think the thing that you don't want happening, and especially what Amy doesn't want happening, is which could happen in organizations where a head coach runs up the back stairwell and the GM runs up the other side of the stairwell, and then she wanted a football executive that can handle that and manage those relationships, and we work together within the room. And one example, I talked to one of my mentors in this league, John Schneider. He went out to Seattle. He didn't have final say. Pete Carroll had it, and I asked him, how often did this actually come up? And he couldn't really remember a time where, Pete just, threw the hammer down on him. He said, sometimes there's going to be times you're going to disagree. You want that. You want healthy debate in the room and all that. But at the end of the day, if you just simply cannot come to an agreement on whatever that particular player, well, let's go find another player that we both agree on.
So that was Chad Brinker with us earlier this morning, and a lot of detail there, Rhett. Some interesting things to react to, but ultimately what we expected, right, going into this process. Chad Brinker does have roster control. However, there's some good insight into what practically that looks like in that answer.
Yeah, and here's the other part with Chad's answer that I think is important to remember. We're not in those war rooms. We don't know I've never seen the inside of one. I'd love to, but I'm not probably ever going to see that.
I snuck in one before, but wasn't invited. I was not. It was not because the front offices, to your point, it's usually a big old rectangle room for the way most of them work, and you walk in, they got it lined all the way up, and they got it color coded exactly as you say, blue, green, yellow, red, and stuff like that. So it is a lot.
I'll tell you, you've got your main big board, you've got your board, you've got a back board.
Yeah.
I mean, you're working on stuff.
A lot of info.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my gosh, it takes a village, literally. But I think what I hear there is what I've always heard about in war room draft stories, the few that I've heard. I mean, you will have a certain coach or an evaluator or a scout, maybe it's the GM, that will stand on the table for somebody. We have to take X, we have to take Y, or we have to take Z. And sometimes they get overruled, or they just, like he said, let's go find a common space with another player. Or they stump and sell, their prospect going, this is going to work. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, what I'm getting at is there's no exact science to any of this because it's a people business. You're dealing with people. You're drafting young men. and you're hoping above all hope that you're going to hit on this and hit a home run over the outfield wall. But there's no exact science. And so, it sounds like there'll be some give and take and there'll be some debate. I mean, look, you're not going to agree on every pick. I don't care who you are.
No.
But I think there's room for healthy discussion.
What's fascinating, man, is hearing him say if one side strongly believes in a guy and another side strongly believes in a guy, then you go find a guy that you both like, and you'd almost expect, well, somebody's got to compromise. That also leads to inner building hate almost, because if the guy that you select on the other side sucks, then we also got to have a conversation, and that's when it starts to fracture a little bit to say, hey, you missed your opportunity to get the right guy. Now look at us. Like, I thought that was a fascinating approach to saying, if we can't agree upon them, we got to go find somebody else. And that leaves a lot more questions, because what if one of the guys that you wanted is the actual dude? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And you just,
well,
do you get a lesser guy is basically what that situation falls into?
I think it just depends on the situation. Because again, you bring up a valid point, Ramon. When you have pods of players, and Mac will tell you this, he has every draft season. You have pods of players that you tier and you pod, and like, this is the guys we like at this position. This is the guys in pod 3 we like here. And so there may be somebody that is still left in your first pod that we all agree this is a can't miss guy.
Right.
So there's all these variables where I don't think that situation, to Chad Brinker's point, comes up as often as we think it does, because you've got to be in the perfect scenario where it's like, man, my guy's sitting right there. And plus all the other things about you at this point, when you're in the war room, you've already been through free agency, first and second wave, maybe even a third wave. And so you know what you've got on your roster. And so you're looking at these final pieces. Now, sometimes you go against conventional wisdom and you take somebody that you believe is the best player at that point. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. The Detroit Lions, they didn't take a quarterback. They took Penei Sewell, and they put him at right tackle, and that had worked out. But, they were just lambasted for that publicly. But
was it Jamar Chase too a part of that conversation?
Yes.
With them? Yes.
Yeah, it was Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell.
Yep.
Right. But anyway, I think you've got to I don't think those scenarios come up as often as we think, is what I'm trying to say.
I personally have been a part of one of those situations, though, too. I think I've told it before. Who
did you draft?
No, it wasn't a draft. The way it was explained to me.
A nice beverage.
Yeah,
a lager.
A lager.
Those are the things you've drafted.
Hey.
The way it was explained to me, and I just recently did Ben's podcast in Pittsburgh this past weekend.
Roethlisberger, for those unfamiliar.
Yeah,
and
big Ben.
I think Bert might have heard it too a little bit, because he said he was going through it. But I essentially got pushed back, because they had drafted a first-round right guard. I played right guard. They had just played a veteran left guard, the position. Somehow I got moved back. And the guy, DeCastro, ended up partially tearing his ACL in the third preseason game. And at that point, we go back to the south side. We go back to our practice facility. And that fourth week is the throwaway game, basically, for the starters. You rest. And my offensive line coach came up to me, and as far as decisions that have to be made, he walked up to him and said, just know it wasn't my decision. I got outvoted. And that was one of those surreal moments for me. It was just like, there are these type of situations that happen where, and again, like you said, to the point to where I don't like it, I love it, and you just decide on what the governing powers are at that point. But I got voted out in a sense. So, yeah, it does happen to those points. It worked out for me in the end, but that type of stuff is what happens behind closed doors.
Well, I imagine it just made you angry and want to work even harder.
Yeah, it did.
You were already grinded, but it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to hit another gear.
It happens more often than I think we give it credit to.
So, Rhett, I think the answer or the question was asked by Will of how do you guys, with so much similarity in terms of Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker, you have so many similarities, maybe what's the things that are different that can help you guys expand your knowledge when it comes to drafting and all of that? And I thought it was interesting. He said, I wanted somebody smarter than me even. And when I was talking with Chad afterwards too, he said, this was a really difficult decision. He knows John Eric Sullivan very well. But when it came down to it, he said this was the right guy for the job. If I weren't there, could he take over? Yes. So how do you feel like these two will complement each other with similar backgrounds?
Well, I mean, obviously he knows, the gentleman from Green Bay from their time together there. So, he discussed the difficulty of the departure of Rand Carthon. I mean, this is, that's the thing that he's having, you could tell in his voice, he's having a harder time is the pivot now towards we've got to go full tilt boogie in pre-draft stuff that's already, you've had scouts working for months and months. I mean, you heard him say he's seen like top 50 top players himself. I think what he said about when Mike Borgonzi came in with what 200 and something page, guide about here's how this works. It's much akin in a different way, but akin to the report that you heard when Bill Belichick went in and talked to North Carolina. And he brought the 400-page manifesto of like, here's how this works. This is how we do this. And it's when you got a guy comes in with a manual, you're like, okay, he's
serious?
super prepared.
Yeah.
But the other part of it, too, I go back to the final 6 candidates that were in-person interviews. 4 of the 6 were a part of perennial winning teams. And I think that emphasis on winning it certainly drives that. Everybody wants to, cherry pick something. It happens every year in free agency.
It does.
But it does happen in these things, too. I mean, when you look at his background with Kansas City and navigating, and I'm interested to hear, not only his availability today, but 3HL this afternoon with him about navigating the pre-set up thing that led to them taking Patrick Mahomes. Because we played the Kansas City Chiefs. Titans played the Kansas City Chiefs his rookie year in that 4th preseason game.
That's right.
And Alex Smith started the game, and I remember distinctly Patrick Mahomes, because they moved up to get him, and they're like, and there was other quarterbacks in the discussion in that year's draft, and he came into that 4th quarter, and he made a throw across his body with a flick of the wrist, like it was. I mean, he made a couple plays in that 4th quarter, like, okay, I get it, I get it, and they're like, this could be something good. We'll see what happens. Here we are later. They're going for the first ever three-peat in the history of 105-year history of the National Football League. So I'd love to hear how he navigated all that and, the Alex Smiths and doing all that. And, they were in a place where they were trying to find what they were doing, because before they won that first one, they hadn't won anything in 50 years.
No. Was not good.
There are the few exception to the rule stories historically in the league. The franchise you played for, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they were awful for 60 years. They were awful before the Second World War. Like, they were bad. And then in the late 60s, and they hired Chuck Nolan, and they has these drafts where they got Joe Green and they got Terry Bradshaw. And they had a killer draft in that 68, 69, 70 draft in there. And that built those foundational pieces. And they still are with the third coach in that amount of time, 50-something years later.
That's wild.
That's ridiculous.
It started with one guy, to Chad Brinker's point, though. When he mentioned the generational pick or talent, whether it be quarterback or anywhere else, for them in that era, it was Joe Green. You know what I'm saying? And matching it up with the right coach in front office, and you got to continue those picks, too.
It is interesting, Rhett, when you talk about what Chad Brinker describes as blue prospects. And we asked about the quarterback position, about the priorities at the number 1 overall pick. And he talked about, we don't want to pass up on generational talents. How many of those do you think could be in this draft class?
And look, I'm just a novice at this. I don't do it for a living, and so let's frame that properly. Although I've gotten an NFL education from Coach Mack. In my opinion, I don't know that there's a ton of them this year. You hear varying reports of 10 to 12 first-round grades this year, which luckily is, right where the Titans want to be, even if they wanted to trade down a few spots.
Right.
You hear that it's not as great a year as 2024 for the quarterback position, and even in the offensive tackles and, a couple other things like that. But there's some really good talent in some other positions in this, but when you're it goes outside of those 4 core things that you need: a corner, shutdown corner, edge pass rusher, left tackle, and quarterback. You start to go, well, how important, how deep is it? How great is it? Well, it's enough. In some positions, you're going to get some positional value in picks in day 2 and going into day 3 in a couple of cases. But I don't know how many can't miss there are, because, again, this is just January the 22nd, and
Sure.
there's a lot to happen between now and April 24th, 5th, and 6th in Green Bay, Wisconsin for the draft, which, by the way, that could be interesting.
That's going to be wild. It could be cold there then.
Seriously.
It does not get warm there till about July, I think. Yeah.
Do you think it's a better process considering how much football business got to go by with the draft being pushed back to? Or is it too much time to overthink these picks, right?
Well, you got too much to do between now and then to be concerned about that. The date is the date.
Yep.
And so think about this. All right, Chad Brinker told you all that, he's going down to Arlington to go to the East-West Shrine stuff and to see Shedeur Sanders on Friday. And then they're immediately going to the Senior Bowl next week.
Yep.
And so immediately following that. And then you think about all these pre-draft workouts. They've got to have their top 30 visits. And then now you're getting into the window of the combine, which leads into the opening of the new fiscal year and free agency. There is a ton of things that they have to do. And you heard him say it, quote, "We have many holes to fill on this roster." And, it doesn't just, it starts at the quarterback, but there's a whole lot more. And that's the importance of going to these college all-star games, which now include underclassmen, which is huge. Yeah. When you look at some of the underclassmen that are at both games, there's a lot of important prospects that are going to help somebody on Sundays.
It really, I think, Rhett, the interesting part of it is that you've got to come out of this with someone whose face can be on the new stadium, and the opportunity that you have. You think about generational, you think about Abdul Carter, you think about maybe a Travis Hunter type, but I'm just really interested to see the value that they can get for that pick. And as buzz continues to grow about Cam Ward, about Shedeur Sanders, how encouraged is New York? How encouraged is Las Vegas to come to the table and try to make you an offer? And really, a lot of that conversation begins this weekend when we watch Shedeur Sanders throw and talk as an NFL prospect within that context for the first time.
Absolutely. And then that conversation continues with everybody that migrates from there, going east, going to Mobile to the Senior Bowl. And then that's where those conversations start to percolate because everybody knows everybody.
Absolutely.
And if they don't, they have a coworker that does. It's a small circle. And then that's when those things get hinted at maybe a meetup, coffee, and maybe a dinner with somebody. And next thing you know, you get to the combine, and then that's where things start to brew. Because we've seen in previous years when the Titans have had this and when other teams have, that's when a real solid conversation and some foundational work on a potential trade really begins. Again, you have to have the space where everybody's there together at the same site, where you can easily go over to whoever's hotel or, in the, hallways of the convention center at Indianapolis, whatever
they're in. Yeah, it's a lot.
Restaurants are littered with them. We see it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Even a bar. So, but the opportunity is certainly there. And I think I'm interested. That is what I'm really interested in from Mike Borgonzi's point of view. You hear Chad Brinker saying, he mentioned 10 different positions it could be. Yep. And also open to the fact of, hey, the number, give us a call. I think that's very smart, because you may go through this process and find, what, this is our guy and we're sticking and picking. But if somebody makes you an offer you can't refuse, to quote Don Corleone, you got to do business, because you need draft capital. I go back to what he said. We have many holes to fill on this roster. And early part of your interview with Chad, he was adamant about how this thing is built. You draft that talent, you procure that talent, you pay that talent, you keep that talent. And,
and then you replicate it, Rhett. And then you just continue to just let that talent just breed the rest of what the locker room standard
And
is.
there are
It's a
decisions
beautiful
you will
process.
have to make because there's a salary cap and not everybody can keep everybody.
Right.
It's not the good old days. But the cornerstone key pieces, you can do
You
that
can do
with.
that, yeah.
Facts.
He is Rhett Bryan on Twitter at RhettB Tennessee, the executive producer of Titans Radio, joining us this morning as he does every Wednesday in the studio. Appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody warm up, thaw out.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Your chance to react to the Chad Brinker interview. Phones wide open for a few minutes before we are joined by Philip Forsberg coming up at 9:05. 615-737-1045. Take it anywhere from what you heard from Chad Brinker. What stood out to you? We'll get your reaction next. RKW continues this morning on 104.5 The Zone and streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV. We are pushing for 15,000 subscribers before the Titans make the number one overall pick. You guys have made that possible on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel. Hit the like button and subscribe while you are there. It takes about 5 seconds and it is free to you. 615-737-1045. Your chance to react to what you heard from Chad Brinker this morning here on the show. Let's start with Mark in the borough. First up. Hey, Mark.
Good morning, RK Dub.
Morning.
What's up?
Hey, I didn't get a chance to listen to Chad this morning. I had a late start, but congratulations, guys. Y'all always breaking the great news, and I hope a lot of people ain't complaining. But shout out to y'all. My thing is, look, man, if we don't get Cam Ward in this draft, then I think we will regret it because for the simple fact that this man had over 18,000 passing yards in his whole college career. Levis only had 5,800 passing yards his college career. I think Jaden Daniels had about 12,000 passing yards his whole college career. But that's not easy to do. I don't care who you play for, where you are. Starting his freshman year, he's had 18,000 passing yards. I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate the call. I think if it was that simple, you'd have four-year starters always be successful in the NFL, and that's just not the reality. I mean, Daniel Jones had 8,000 passing yards in his career at Duke, and now he's going to be available as a quarterback again. So I don't think it's that cut and dry, but that is one of the feathers in his cap and Shedeur Sanders' cap is that both of them have played a lot of football. And that is meaningful for both guys who were four-year starters their entire times and in different places and different conferences as college QBs.
No doubt. And here's the thing, too. Like, it does boil down to them vetting them entirely on every single thing that they want out of a quarterback here. Chad mentioned, like, look, they know there's a lot of holes to fill on this team, but you can't pass up on a guy that you think that can change the entire face of the franchise.
Right.
And that's what you're looking for. Will brought up something, too. It's like whoever you get, like you got to be able to put their poster on the outside of Nissan Stadium. And it's got to be sustainable, and it's got to be believable, too. But the other side of this for me is this. Like, you mentioned, like, finding the right quarterback or the fact that you love the right quarterback. I think Bryce Young's not a bad quarterback. I think Caleb Williams not a bad quarterback. There is a marrying of offenses and coaches that have to happen in these processes, right? We're bragging right now about Jaden Daniels, and he's crushing it. He's got a competitive edge and a look and a playmaking ability and a style that you want on your squad. The same goes for C.J. Stroud in the last two couple of what's name drafts. Now I'll even go back as far as Joe Burrow. Like, Joe has to be put in the right situation. Joe can kill it as much as he absolutely wants to. But if the team structure and defense and supporting staff around him ain't good, you find yourselves out of the playoffs. So, like, what I will ask is this, though, as far as, like, the way you view either one of these young men, Shedeur or Cam Ward, is this. Understand there has to be a system, right? That's where I am, too. Like, whatever Coach Callahan wants or love out of either one of them, it's got to be the guy that you trust him to coach up to. Because he does, from what Chad Brinker said, has a say-so in this also because he is the play caller.
Sure, especially, when it comes to your quarterback, right? I mean, because that's kind of what Callahan prides himself on is helping develop that. We hadn't seen that yet here. And so if they do go to that direction, he needs to feel comfortable that he can do that with that quarterback. And I also thought it was interesting when Chad answered the question about we were able in some of these places, Green Bay, let's say, where he was, to have time to develop these quarterbacks, to sit them, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, right? But he said, we know that's not really the case these days. It's very hard to do that. So if they don't truly feel like this quarterback could be ready, do they go that direction? And I feel like they are really starting to just dip their toes in all of this. From everything that I can recall, like that he said to us and that Callahan has said, like, they're not going to really know for sure what they're doing until they start deep diving into this class.
Yeah. I do wonder if they do go get a veteran free agency as far as quarterback goes, like how long do you let them sit? Is this like a half a year thing? Or are you patient enough to let a bridge quarterback foster in the young guy And that's why they do have experience. Both Borgonzi and Chad Brinker both have had experience with fostering in young talent and not overloading them too quick, because that if Miss Amy is on board with time, right, and just the front office in general, this seems to be a more successful process than, hey, throw them to the wolves.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing I think is interesting when you talk about roster control and the quarterback decision, I don't think they would have hired someone who is aligned in a different way on that front, on the quarterback front. Like, think about it. If you interview a candidate, and if you're Chad Brinker and in your mind, and again, this is purely speculation. Chad's not, we don't know which quarterback they like better without a shadow of a doubt at this point. But let's say for the sake of conversation, the Titans like Shedeur Sanders. Okay, well, if you come in as a GM candidate and you are a Cam Ward guy and you're pounding the table for Cam Ward, I don't know if the Titans would hire you. Like, that's the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you evaluate prospects in a similar way, I would imagine that you align the way the Titans do and the people that are in the room interviewing you at the quarterback position.
I would expect so.
So, yes, I think that roster control matters. I think final say isn't overblown. I understand why they're going to tell us that, and I get it. It's not overblown. Roster control matters, right? It does. But I do think that on the front end, you're more likely to bring somebody in who aligns with you on the quarterback position. And it's why I wanted to ask the question, how many different pitches did you hear about quarterback? You know, was that a part of this? Absolutely it was, is what Chad told us. So I would imagine whoever they brought in probably is on the same page with Chad and with Brian about the quarterback they want.
I have to, because that, like, picking number one overall and picking the quarterback isn't something, to your point, a coach can just say, yeah, I can work with that. Like, this one isn't that, because jobs, of course, Chad alluded to it, like, this league is based on wins and losses. It's results. He was slow to say what they're going to do and projections of the season because of that. Like, at that spot where they are, you can't say I'll settle.
Yeah. Let's get Eric and Charlotte in here real quick before we get to a break. You get to Philip Forsberg on the other side. What's up, Eric?
What's up, family? How y'all doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. So I gotta say this. I know I already I know Kayla, but I didn't like a part of the interview where he's bringing up how the coaching staff has grown. There's so many different coaches, and you're asking Borgonzi to come in and deal with all this, and then you're also asking him to look at film, and you know what I mean? Like, Rand did that too, or you're asking Rand to do that too, and you got to have a fall guy. But I feel like when you go on here, what are you supposed to say? You're supposed to say, well, he wasn't a great dish, you know what I mean? Or we won 3 games. It didn't add up to me because it's like he didn't coach or play. Now, let me get this out right quick by Shedeur. At first, I'm like, we need to get at Dale Carter or Ward. But I'm like, with the Titans in a new stadium, you bring in Shedeur Sanders, you bring in the limelight, you bring in possibly, some big games on Thursday nights and Monday nights, the Deion Sanders, the aura. The question is that something they want to deal with? The camera follow him everywhere and that type of style. So, anyways, I'll hang up and let y'all talk about it.
Sure.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate the call. What do you guys think?
Man,
when it comes down to it, I don't really think that matters. I think that if that is the quarterback they see that they can get the most value out of, that's going to elevate their team, they're going to go for that. And what I can say, honestly, I do feel like there is enough in Mike Borgonzi's past in terms of what he's sat in on, even if he hasn't made the direct decision in Kansas City, to really know, like, okay, this quarterback can be the dude.
Yeah. I don't care if Shedeur Sanders, Deion Shuffle all the way out of his stance. If he can play football and win, it don't matter. I don't care if Cam Ward comes out there with a diamond-encrusted face mask, okay? If he can play football, I don't think at this point beggars can be choosy as it pertains to what quarterback you choose to get at this point. If one believes in them and they think they can coach them up, you roll with them. The personality types, man, Phil's dog whistling with a lot of the conversation. Like, legitimately, just let these guys, I'll put it this way. Go watch some of the live stuff that they've recorded, Shedeur and Shiloh and Deion Sanders. You'll be impressed with the conversation they had with their dad. Go look at Cam Ward's pre-draft stuff. Like, it's more than just the players. Like, Travis Kelce is one of the most flamboyant guys out there. So is Joe Burrow. So is Josh Allen. Like, there's a lot of flamboyant guys out there that just simply play ball. Lamar Jackson right now is about to probably be a 3-time MVP, and he's playing with a mouthful of diamonds and gold. You love to have him. So let's put all that to side. Like, let's focus more, Nashville, on the tape. That's my plea.
Just win, baby.
Absolutely.
Al Davis the hell out of this, Will.
Just win. Coming up next, Predators forward Philip Forsberg. After this on 104.5 The Zone.
What's going on, you bunch of hooligans? 903, good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Big show today. Titans President of Football Operations, Chad Brinker, joined the show in studio at 7:20 today ahead of Mike Borgonzi's introductory press conference today at 11. You can go check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast out. And Mike Borgonzi will be on 3HL today in the 5 o'clock hour. Head coach search update as Aaron Glenn has landed back in Detroit via Woody Johnson's plane. No deal is expected as of now, but a substantial offer was made, and it is it is his job if he would like to take it. Glenn currently constructing his potential staff, which would ideally include Lions quarterback coach Mike Brunell. Big bounce back win for the Vols last night as they took down Mississippi State 68-56. Chaz Lanier with 23 points. Felix Okpara finishing with 12 rebounds and 1 point shy of a double-double. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
RKW continues this morning into Hour 4 on 104.5 The Zone. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. 615-737-1045 is our number. Great discussion with Titans President of Football Operations, Chad Brinker, in the books already this morning. Rhett Bryan in studio with us as well. Tons of Titans talk as we roll on a big day here at 104.5 The Zone. Coming up at 11 o'clock, Titans General Manager Mike Borgonzi meets with the media for the first time, and you will be able to hear that, of course, right here on 104.5 The Zone. And then at 5 o'clock, Mike Borgonzi on 3HL, Titans GM. His first interview as the GM of the Titans, and we may be able to talk with him ourselves soon as well. More on that to come as we continue this morning. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Shifting gears as we are pleased to be joined by our friend of the show, Philip Forsberg. Predators with a big win last night. You made the extra point, Phil. A big one against the Sharks last night. How are you, man?
I'm great. I mean, like you said, it's not every day we get a touchdown on the board. And we almost gave up one too, though. But yeah, we pulled it off at the end.
4-goal comeback, the first one in franchise history. You've won 4 in a row. Phil, how good does this team feel right now?
No, I mean, I think obviously it's trending in the right direction for sure. And it wasn't, the prettiest of matches last night, but we found a way to win. And I think that's something that we've been, getting to here as of late, which is something that we're definitely going to need down the stretch. And it's great that we're learning how to find ways to win.
Philip Forsberg joining us this morning on RKW. Phil, so in terms of just winning those 4 in a row, and I know last year we went to that point after the All-Star game where you guys kind of got things together and made this, tremendous run. Is there anything that happened in the last month or so that maybe you had that point where you said, okay, we're putting it together because of this reason?
Yeah, so we actually had a concert that was canceled. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, dang, Phil, I didn't know about this one. Was it Jelly Roll?
I'm just kidding. I don't think there's no magic recipe as much as we would like to think that was the case last year. I think it's just a lot of moving parts coming together, step by step. The guys, every year, it doesn't matter what you had last year. There's always a new year and new players, whether it's a big change or small changes. It's always going to be a little bit of a transition period. And I think that took us a little longer than we would have liked, obviously. But basically from the new year in, I feel like this month have been really good for us. We've been playing really good hockey, and even in the games when we haven't got results, it's been good efforts. We played really well against Washington, who led the league at the time, and couldn't find a way to win in that one. But then, beat Vegas, beat Chicago, beat Minnie, and now San Jose. So I think we're doing things the right way. so to speak, and the results are starting to come as well, which is a good feeling for sure.
And I think one of the biggest things to pull from this month is, for the most part, finding ways to win at home. I think that's something we discussed when we had you on earlier in the season, was we want to be able to win at home. That's where it all starts. Do you feel like you guys are kind of getting into that mode as well?
Yeah, I think we're definitely turned a page. I think that little homestand we had right before Christmas was huge for us to pick up 7 out of 8 points there, and then kind of carry that over in this one as well. And like you said, we want to make this place one of the hardest buildings to play, and which has been known for in the past. And I think that's something that we're starting to ramp up with here. And this homestand proved that as well.
Nashville Predators, Philip Forsberg with us this morning. When it comes to like the way you guys started off the season and get to this point right now where you're saying the opposite of it right now, like at the beginning, were there conversations to be had that, look, this will smooth itself out? Because athletes sometimes find themselves not panicking. Was there much panic over the course of the season until you got to this point?
No, I mean, I wouldn't call it panic. Obviously, there's a sense of urgency. Don't get me wrong. I mean, You know how it is when you're underperforming, and especially early in the season, you know that there's time, so you're positive, trying to stay positive, but you also know that you can't win the Stanley Cup in November, but you can certainly put yourself in a spot where you can't compete for it. So I think that was kind of the urgency that we realized, and obviously we did put ourselves in a tough spot, but I do believe that we have clearly we have the people to make it happen. We just gotta keep this train going. And I'm not saying we're gonna have to win, 40 of the remaining games in a row, but we're gonna have to go on win streaks, keep stringing points, keep getting as many points as we can to put us in that spot to compete. Because if we do get in, we have a really dangerous team, as we started to prove to ourselves and to everyone coming up here.
Were you guys just honestly like waiting on the cold weather to actually kick it in gear? Because right now the entire South is an iceberg, okay? And that's one of those things I feel like guys miss home, and Canada's a lot colder than the United States usually. Sweden's a lot colder. Like, was that exactly what you were waiting on?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was a little too nice and comfortable here in November, so we weren't kicking into gear until we had to face the elements. So hopefully it can stay frosty for us all the way down the road here.
Yeah, the ability to have weather where you could skate outside if you needed to. Difference maker. Philip Forsberg with us here this morning on your Mo and Kayla Will. Phil, for you, 6 goals in 6 games, or I should say 7 goals in 6 games, but a 6-game goal streak individually. What is working for you? What's the difference been over these last few weeks?
I think our line has been playing really good hockey since we were put together, honestly, with Stamkos and Marchessault. So both of them are obviously unbelievable players, and for me, it's been really easy just kind of transitioning into playing with them. And I think obviously a lot of credit goes to them, and then I think the power play has been clicking pretty well too. And personally, I just try to go to the net maybe a little bit more, be around there, and puck has to go to the net at some point. You might as well be there and take advantage of that.
What have you learned from playing with those two guys? You talk about that transition. What have you had to really figure out about playing with Stamkos and Marchessault and just what they do well?
No, but I think it's like anything. You a new player comes in, you obviously played against them for a long time and know how incredibly talented they are, but then once you play, you start seeing their thought process on how to play, and everybody's different, obviously, which is why this league is so cool. That you watch players, they might look the same, but they have a very different mindset. Like in their case, it's obviously Marchessault is more of a passer. Kind of finds time and space for himself. As he's not the biggest guy, but he's really good at finding that time and space and making plays. And obviously with Stammer, everyone knows that he's one of the best goal scorers in the history of the game, but at the same time, he's almost a pass-first guy as well. So for me, I just try to create as much room as I can for those guys, give them time, and then I know they're going to get it back to me at some point, right? So it's I think it's been kind of that took a little bit of time, I guess, a couple games to kind of see their where they like to be on the ice, how they like to move and stuff like that. But after that, it's been very seamless.
Philip Forsberg joining us this morning on RKW. Phil, we talk about some of the veteran players on this team and obviously some that were brought to Nashville this year. But how about some of these younger guys? What have you liked out of some of those guys and seeing how they're progressing?
I like a lot, especially as of late. obviously we've dealt with a lot of injuries, especially on the back end, and that's given guys opportunities to step up, whether it's been, guys that started the season in Milwaukee or just starting down in the depth chart a little bit. And it's been great watching guys like Blankenberg and Wilsby and, Spencer Stastny made a great impact as well. Those guys kind of taking the opportunity, playing up in the lineup and playing really good hockey and kind of, establishing themselves as NHL players. And I think that's been great. I think, Fedor Svechkov has played really well since he got up here, and him and Novak had an unbelievable game last night and kind of kept us in it, with two massive goals early in the game and then one more towards the end. The Blankenberg score that they set up too as well. So I think there's a lot to like, and it's all starting to kind of come together at the same time.
Nashville Predators, Philip Forsberg with us this morning. Phil, over the course of the season, man, you guys play a lot of games. What is one of the biggest maintenance issues that you guys have to make sure you're taking care of, considering it's a physical game, but it's also a game where you're on skates and sticks? How do you keep it together for a guy that myself played a physical game too, but you guys are in it for the long haul?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's obviously, as you know, it's a wear and tear. You travel a lot. Like this homestead has been really nice, just being home for a while, but now we hit the road today, go to California, and I think it's just about staying consistent with what you do. I think for me it's just taking care of the body, whether we skate or not, always trying to do something to move around a little bit, just get the blood flowing and keeping up with the trainers. We have a phenomenal training staff and they do a great job taking care of us. So I try to take advantage of them as much as I can and just keep the body moving. It's like you said, it's a long season, and you got to try to do everything you can to just stay ready for the next one. And then I think the second thing is obviously the mental part. Just kind of keeping up with that with the long season. Like I said, you play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday. It gets repetitive, right? So you just try to stay with it. Find ways to get excited about every game. And I think our team has done a really good job at that, getting each other hyped up before games, and that's something that we got to keep doing, obviously.
For someone who's not very, deep into the weeds as far as hockey training goes, like, do you guys do on-ground training? Like, is it running or is it, like, on ice? Because that side of it to me, because of how you guys change in and out and just got to be fast and quick on the ice, is it land or is it actually on the rink?
So at this point, we don't do anything off the ice. Everything we do is, we work out,
right,
in the gym or kind of get warmed up and stuff. But all the in-season training is on the ice. But during the summer, there's a lot of, like, all your off-season programs are different, obviously. But I do a lot of running. Like, I go to the track that's right next to me here and at Lipscomb and try to get my feet moving. I'm not the fastest guy, so I got to put in the work in the summer to get my feet moving, and that's a lot of ground training. So if you're still interested, anytime you want to come join, and if you want to feel the turf on your feet again, just let me know.
You're just like me. You said you're not the fastest guy. Immediately, me and you were best friends. Okay,
right?
All right. Just you said at Lipscomb, I got you.
Perfect.
Hey, Phil, I hear baby Felix, I think, in the background. What has it been to be a dad, now this season, since the guy is actually here? And is it hard sometimes when you're on the road in those situations so long?
Yeah, it's been tough. Obviously, it's always tough when you leave for that long, whether it's, leaving Aaron and now leaving both of them. It's added another layer, because FaceTime is great. You can talk to each other and at least see him, but it's not, it doesn't really get through. He doesn't understand it as well as I'd like yet. But also there's silver lining that I don't think he really realized. He obviously knows that I'm gone, but he hasn't realized that I'm leaving yet, so there's not that goodbye part, sure. At least, sure. Which is not, it's sad for me because I know I'm leaving, but he doesn't know how long. I don't know if he realized how long I'm gone, which is helpful. So it's only going to get harder, but it certainly has been a blessing to have him around, and obviously having them at the games is it's really special.
Phil, I'm excited for Four Nations in a couple of weeks, and I know you are as well, and representing Sweden. What is this kind of tournament like for you guys, having Canada, Sweden, the U.S., and Finland in this kind of pause in the middle of the NHL season? How excited are you for this tournament? I know that there's a lot of fans that are pumped for the first best-on-best tournament since 2016.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes for the players as well. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to play in the World Cup in 16, which is the last one that was best on best. And it's been 8, almost 9 years since then. And I can't can't wait to get back on there, represent Sweden, in that type of tournament. And obviously it's a new construction of a tournament, so there's no history behind it, but I'm excited to kind of create that and see if that's something that will be a continuous thing, whether it's, through that or through the World Cup of Hockey. And then obviously with the Olympics coming up next year, that's something that's going to be really, really excited too.
He is Philip Forsberg, the only Liverpool fan that I will talk with right now as an Arsenal fan. You guys, please drop points at some point. I'm gonna put the soccer talk in here, Phil. Man, I know you are as big a Liverpool fan as it is. I mean, you keeping Mo Salah? Like, what's going on? Is it one last ride into the sunset for him?
I'm not sure. Before the season, I probably would have said so, but now, I mean, the way he's been playing this year, I think we just gotta throw the bank at him. To be honest, he's obviously been probably the best player in the world as of this, early part of the season, and it's been exciting. I wasn't really sure because I feel like he was a little bit on the downhill. I mean, he's in his mid-30s almost, which is Asian almost in this day and age in soccer. But he's been unbelievable and carried Liverpool pretty much by himself through this early success that we've had. And it's Arsenal is dealing with some injuries, but
yeah, I know.
It'll be a tight race all the way till the end.
It's hurtful.
You should see Will with the hate smile.
Phil, there's somebody out there saying yes. They loved that soccer breakdown that we got. Look, we got to work it in there. It's the sport of the future, and the future is now. Phil, you know it as well as anybody.
Yeah,
I love it. Philip Forsberg, kind enough to give us a few minutes. Hockey, football, 40-yard dashes, speed, and soccer. We hit it all. And fatherhood with Phil. Phil, man, stay healthy, man. Continued success. Appreciate the time as always, man.
Of course. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks,
all right,
Phil.
There he is, Philip Forsberg. I love having him on because we do go way beyond hockey.
Oh, yeah. He's a dad now. He can relate to dads out there. Like you said, he's a soccer, football fan.
I should have asked him, but he's 30 now. Is he like old head status in the locker room?
Yeah. Be careful with that 30 reference,
I know.
Phil.
He old head status out here now, man. It's funny because I was asking Bert on the talk back. I was like, is he packing or undressing right now?
I was
Because you can hear
wondering
him
that
moving
too.
around.
Yeah.
He's definitely packing to leave.
Yep, for California.
Yeah.
They got
Definitely
stretch
going to cut
over there.
Ramon saying Philip's packing.
Oh, yeah.
Why? You were working earlier. You should be working
I
now.
love that.
Love it.
Like I said, there's probably one or two people out there being like, all right, soccer talk. And then 10 more of you just got really mad and shook your fist at me. All right, coming up, wide open for your reaction to the Chad Brinker interview, 615-737-1045. We're going to play you some of what you missed through that conversation, a couple of the most interesting answers from the Titans president of football operations with us in the studio earlier this morning. Plus a headline from Adam Schefter 5 minutes ago. There is a coach that has taken his name out of the running for the Jaguars job. We'll hit that headline coming up next. Hey, what's going on? It is Will Bowling. I want to tell you about my friends over there at Nolensville Road Auto Mart. You've probably been looking for cars and maybe you see the words buy here, pay here, and you think, I don't know if that's a place I want to go. I get it, right? Those dealers, maybe they have a different reputation than some of the other ones on the market, but I'm here to tell you the one place you need to check out more than anywhere else is Nolensville Road Auto Mart. They are different for a few reasons because they have been doing business in Nashville for 61 years. You stay in business for that long, you learn how to do things the right way. Like me, they're Nashville natives. They only sell clean title cars under 12 grand. So if you're new to town and you need a place to trust, they have got you. Maybe you're looking for a car for that 16-year-old, that new driver in your family. They can certainly take care of that as well. And don't take my word for it. The Google reviews are excellent. Check them out there. Nolensville Road Auto Mart, right on Nolensville Road, close to Thompson Lane. The phone number to give them a call, 615-242-1279. That's Nolensville Road Auto Mart. Flexibility, transparency, and honesty. That's why I recommend Nolensville Road Auto Mart. Give them a call at 615-242-1279. RKW continues hour number 4 this morning on 104.5 The Zone, 615-737-1045 the number. Chad Brinker in studio in hour number 2 had lots to say. We'll recap a lot of that for you right now. Of course, he will meet with the media at 10 o'clock. That will not be streamed, so you can keep it locked here at 11 when Titans GM Mike Borgonzi meets with the media for the first time. Enjoyed catching up with Philip Forsberg as well. Good stuff with him. And Rhett Bryan, of course, it's been a fun show.
It has been a fun show.
Yeah.
A lot of information, man. Different avenues, Kayla, and everything, man.
Good questions
Hockey?
by everyone.
Absolutely. It was. Was it actually? Were we judged on that?
I thought so. I thought that,
gonna
I
leave
even
that
liked your
alone. I
question
ain't
at
gonna be
the end
petty.
there, Moan.
I ain't going to be petty. I'm done.
So Chad Brinker was asked by us about Rand Carthon. Let's start there. Start with the addressing of the past before we get to what I think he told us about things moving forward and about Mike Borgonzi. This was Chad on his former partner in crime, Rand Carthon.
Well, I'll say this. First and foremost, I have the utmost respect for Rand Carthon. He means a lot to me professionally as well as personally. He's a friend. And, this all happened so fast, and I think people forget there's a human element to all this. And I'm still trying to allow my thinking to catch up to my feelings, because the decision was made, and then immediately it was, Amy and I talked. She's like, we're going to find a general manager, and I had to flip into we got to find a general manager mode. And Rand is. It's disappointing that we got to this spot, and I miss him. And like I said, he's a good friend. He's a bright football mind. We know what we signed up for in this league. This is a tough and unforgiving business. It's a hard business. I mean, you know that, Ramon. You played in this league, and you understand what that's like. And I've heard people say it's a good business, but it's a difficult life. And I really understand what that means, and especially in the position that I'm in now. And they say it's lonely at the top. I'm kind of feeling that. I understand what that means a little bit now. But again, Rand, we won 3 games this year and 9 in the last 34. And ultimately, it just wasn't good enough. None of us was good enough, me included. We got to get better in all phases. And unfortunately, it ended up the way it ended up. And like I said, Rand and I've talked. I mean, he knows we're friends, and we have great respect for one another. And I love his family. They're just great people, and it's just disappointing we got to this point.
So that is Chad Brinker with us this morning addressing Rand Carthon.
I tell people all the time, the game is football. What ruins it for a lot is the business side of things too. However it unfolds, however you go about it, that's one of the things that, y'all know I've joked before about, not remembering teammates. This is also the side of it that on the administration side, that happens to them too. If I'm not mistaken, most assistant coaches don't get to walk away with money. That's why you see coaches always get their guys back. I know Coach Terrell Williams with Vrabel's not, he's securing his job and his role. But that's why you always find guys reaching back out to their people, because it's such a dog-eat-dog business. I know somebody was challenging us yesterday as far as I thought we said this wasn't going to be a highly sought-after GM job. Well, you got dudes that have been in rooms for a very long time trying to get one of these positions. It's only one of 32 across the league, and you are clamoring to get one of those. And Chad acknowledged it. Sucks. That's how the business is, whether, you label Rand a fall guy or whether it was unjust. I leave that up to you guys, because I know there's probably a lot of details on both sides that can't be discussed publicly. It happens. Again, this is the business of the league. You play a game, but it's backed by big business and a lot of hard decisions.
And, I asked that question for the fans. I can speculate all I want. You can speculate all you want. The fans can speculate all they want. What we do know, though, guys, is we gave both Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker an opportunity to discuss that topic. And they answered it how they answered it. And you can have your judgment on each of them moving forward. But that's what you've got to do at this point if you're an organization, is move forward in terms of how are we going to fix this? Because you're right. If they go 3-something next year or 4-something next year, that's not good enough. And somebody else will likely be not here because that's the business.
That's why I thought it was important to also ask about Coach Brian Callahan.
Yeah.
Right. He plays a huge part in this too. He's got
absolutely
one guy that helped pick him and Chad, and another dude that didn't pick him and Mike Borgonzi. So, I mean, there's a lot of pressure, I'm sure, on him that he's going to feel too. So we'll see what the timeline looks like and also the results of what next year is going to be.
We also asked Chad Brinker about the quarterback position and his philosophy on drafting one.
Love sat behind Aaron for 3 years. I mean, I wish it can be that way. I can't predict what that's going to look like. But ideally, you'd like those young guys to sit. Even Patrick Mahomes sat for a year behind Alex Smith. So, yeah, ideally that would be great. Allow them, give them the chance to learn and how to be a pro, because it's really tough to go out there as a rookie and get thrown out there, and particularly, if you don't have your offensive line shored up and you're just, teams are pressuring you and you can't protect, and it's just so much coming at these guys. It's hard to play that position, but it's a position where you definitely have to meet the physical requirements to play the position, but it's really a neck-up position. Like the mental quickness and the instincts that you have to have. You got to be able to see things other people can't see, feel things things that other people can't feel, and you recognize it. Everybody can recognize it. It doesn't take a scout to see that. The ones that are the great ones, when you watch a game on television, it just, some guys have a sixth sense and they just feel things and they do things, and you're like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And that's the type of guy. Of course, arm strength, accuracy, and pocket mobility, and all those things come into play. But at the end of the day, it's the instincts. It's the spontaneous instincts. I mean, Bill Walsh talked about this a lot, and I had under Mike McCarthy, he worked for Bill Walsh and brought all these quarterback tapes. And I used to study them up in Green Bay. Their quarterback school is what they called it, and learned a lot during that time while watching those tapes and learning from Mike and the group there. But it really is a position that's neck up.
Neck up.
I think it's interesting, and I think there's more we can dive into there about the Bill Walsh quarterback parameters and what that kind of QB school, quote unquote, prefers at the quarterback position. But neck up, cerebral, that does not sound like Will Levis.
No, respectfully.
It sounds actually like they are moving in a direction where what they will value in quarterback is very dissimilar, is actually the opposite of Will Levis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he brought up Will's name, and he said, he's on our roster right now. He'll get an opportunity to compete, but by no means did he say he's the starter or he's our guy. He never once said that.
Yeah, he did not. There was no commitment.
No.
What he did acknowledge, though, is guys, he'd prefer him to sit. And I think most coaches would. I'm not sure when the change happened. What was it, the Eli Manning draft or the pay? I don't know which one it was, but the need to push guys out forward like that. It might have been a Stafford or Bradford, because the amount of money that those guys were getting early in their careers, like the need to show what they were worth early on, I think it somewhat moved it forward. But, of course, in this league, it's a grown man's league. There's adjustments. We mentioned what Rhett, like going into year 2 for Jaden Daniels. What is that going to look like? Can they replicate that too? Because the league is ever evolving, and you got to continually get better across that, specifically that position, and specifically when you're a top 5 pick also. So a head guy is what he's looking for. The fact, and you can probably almost tell, too, the conversation that was had with Will Levis over the course of the season, too, because when you're talking about rewiring himself and all those types of talks, like, you need a guy that can think and be quick on his feet. Like, that mental luck that you have sometimes to just know, I got to make a quick decision. I don't think we saw that from him.
And one more thing I heard right away from that stood out to me is shoring up offensive lines. In terms of, he wasn't speaking specifically to this one, but that's something that's important with the young quarterback, and that is something they have not done necessarily yet 100%.
Green Bay's consistently had one to that point, going all the way back to Scott Wells from when I started watching them. Shout out, go Vols.
That's right. Local product.
Absolutely.
Nashville guy and Tennessee guy. Adam Schefter putting out a few minutes ago on the Jags front that Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Cohen is taking himself out of the running for the Jaguars head coaching job to stay in Tampa on a new contract that now will place him amongst the highest paid coordinators in the NFL. So the Bucks keep their OC and the Jags swing and a miss again.
Dang.
That's what happens when you have instability.
Really hate that for him.
Like super uncertain about what you're allowed to do there. You go from a college phenom coach and Urban Meyer to a steady Eddie and Doug Peterson, and neither one of them work out. But I ain't gonna say similar records, but a bunch of losing. Why would you step foot in it? But other than a buyout, what are you getting from it at this point? If you're not allowed to coach and do what you want to, they got the picks. They've always had picks. They got the quarterbacks. You got a guy in Liam Cohen who's an offensive coordinator. That said no.
But it's the opposite problem from, not having stable GMs here, because they have one that is really not stable in terms of what he does, but stable with his job.
Right.
Yeah. I got to dive more into Trent Baalke. I see somebody put that in there. James did.
Yeah.
Baalke killing the organization. What does it look like? Like internally.
Losing. A lot of losing. That's what it's looked like.
A lot of losing.
And that's the scary part for any coach. Like, doesn't this already screams like a David Culley-esque hire where it's like, okay, if they suck, they're going to fire Trent Baalke, and why would they keep me? They're going to bring a new guy in the front office who's going to want his own guy. So, why would I take this job to get a 1-year trial to try to land a plane that no one else has been able to land with a franchise quarterback?
In hindsight, we should have given Liam Cohen more credit on making Will Levis look so good.
To be real.
Yeah.
His junior season at Kentucky that earned him, at that point, maybe top 5 overall pick status. Before he came out and before he came back for his senior season, that was Liam Cohen, who is everything he's touched at the quarterback position has turned to gold.
Even so much with Baker Mayfield. Again.
Yep.
Right? And facilitating at the end of the season, trying to get Evans his other 1,000 yards, too. Yeah, it was cool.
Wrapping up the show, coming up next, 615-737-1045, the final call for phone calls. We'll play you more Chad Brinker talking about Mike Borgonzi and difference of opinion between himself and the new Titans GM, despite the fact that they come from such similar backgrounds. And, of course, Inky Johnson, midweek motivation on deck as well next. What's going on? It is Will Bowling here from my friends at Brentwood Hearing Center, updating you with exciting news. Their team of doctors of audiology are always committed to providing patients with the most recent hearing device technology. And recently, their leadership team attended the launch of a revolutionary hearing aid, the Phonak Sphere, which is completely dedicated to helping you hear well in situations when there's background noise. There's a computer chip in this thing that means when you are out to dinner at a noisy restaurant, if you're at a sporting event, you're just hanging out with family, there's different conversations going on, you can hear the one that you actually want to participate in. Give them a call, 615-377-0420, and allow them to demonstrate this industry-changing hearing aid technology, which also connects directly to your smartphone and television. They're online at BrentwoodHearingCenter.com. The phone number, again, 615-377-0420. Conveniently located at the Brentwood Old Hickory exit off I-65. Let them introduce you to the sounds that you have been missing. 615-377-0420. That's Brentwood Hearing Center. Better hearing, better life. Wrapping up the show at RKW 104.5 The Zone, the Buck Rising Show coming up next. And, of course, you'll be able to hear the full press conference for new Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi at 11 a.m. He will then join 3HL at 5. And stay tuned at Ramon Kayla Will on Twitter. We are efforting having him on our show tomorrow.
Yes.
So we will let you know when we have an official time on that. Will likely be earlier in the show. But again, at Ramon Kayla Will on Twitter. No, we don't call it X on this show. And you can find the information there as soon as we have that confirmed. Chad Brinker talked about Mike Borgonzi on this show earlier this morning. That full podcast is available now. Wherever you download podcasts, you can hear the entire discussion on Apple or Spotify, 1045thezone.com as well. This is what the Titans president of football operations, Chad Brinker, had to say about his new GM.
Hey, give me 1 second.
Okay.
I was about to say something crazy right there, Jesse. Be like, yeah, I think the guy sucks. We should have never hired him.
Sounds just like 9:49. 9:49.
I met
Robert
Mike
Walsh
in 2009. Had a lot of respect for him over the years. Our industry obviously is a small circle, and everybody knows everybody. And I just admired him from afar. But when he came through this process, he was just complete in every way as a candidate. Just the preparedness that he had coming into this interview. I think I said this before. I mean, he probably should have been a general manager 2 years ago. He showed up with like this book that was like 260 pages of detailing everything about how to attack the job as a general manager. I mean, he laid out everything. It was just super impressive. He's a really good person, well-respected around the league, and obviously had a lot of success in Kansas City.
So that was Brinker on Borgonzi. We also talked about how similar his background is to Mike Borgonzi's, how that is a challenge maybe sometimes to overcome in recognizing other ways of doing business as well. This was Brinker on that.
Yeah, I think the goal was to find the absolute best general manager candidate that we can possibly find. And I always believe that you want to hire people that are smarter than you, that will push you and elevate your game as well. And I think Mike brings that. And sure, there is some similarities in our backgrounds, but my role has evolved. I spent a lot of time under Russ Ball in Green Bay and learning the executive side of this business. Mike has spent a lot of his time, even as the AGM, overseeing the personnel, college and pro, and that's what he does every day. He gets up and all he thinks about is building a roster and watching tape. My role has evolved. I can do some of those things, but I also have the salary cap background and background on the ops side, and just to be able to support him in those areas, to allow him to. People don't. This industry is just it's exploded. It's growing. I mean, the coaching staff's size has doubled. The personnel staff size has doubled. Analytics, football information systems didn't exist a decade ago. Now you have those groups. Everything, equipment rooms doubled. A video group doubled. Like, everything's just grown. And then you're asking a general manager, first-time general manager, to what got them that job is they're really good at identifying talent and picking the players, and then you bring them in the organization, you drop them in there and say, oh, by the way, you got all this too. Now, you got to fix this team, because that's why you're here, is because the roster's not in great shape. So we need you to fix this team, but 80% of your day is figuring out everything else, and 20% of it is actually doing what got you the job in the first place. So, again, this setup that we have will allow Mike to really thrive in what he's really great at, and I can support him in that area, but also take those other things off his plate. So I'm looking forward to getting to work with him.
There you go.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he clearly, like he mentioned, he does a lot of the number stuff, Brinker, and so I feel like that. What I took from it is you're really putting in a lot of the scouting. Well, this is going to be helped by Brinker, but a lot of the eyes on is going to be Mike Borgonzi.
It is
with those situations. Also, we did ask him at the end of the interview. They will be hiring, it seems to be, an assistant general manager.
Yeah, for sure.
I can play that one too. Hold on, it's a super quick one. Hold on.
Yeah, we're still working through all those things right now. I think there'll be more to come. We're not there yet, but there'll be more to come.
Appreciate that, Chad.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Absolutely.
Short and to the point.
Love that one.
So much more reaction on that tomorrow, and stay tuned with the possibility potentially for us to have Mike Borgonzi on tomorrow morning, which we are expecting. So stay tuned for that. And stay tuned all day. Going to be a big day here on The Zone, of course, with Mike Borgonzi's press conference at 11. Chad Brinker about to meet off camera with media in just a few minutes. And then Mike Borgonzi at 5 o'clock. Be locked in for that. And I imagine means his first Boom Boom Room visit.
Ooh,
Oh, my
I
God.
can't wait.
Later this morning or later this afternoon.
If he don't ask him what's better, Kansas City barbecue or Memphis, we're no longer brothers.
But right now, it is midweek motivation and Inky Johnson. We wrap up our Wednesday the way we always do with our VFL brother, Inky Johnson.
If you've forgotten the language of gratitude, you'll never be on speaking terms with happiness.
Yeah.